What we do here is go back.
Once again. Hello there, everybody. How are we all? It's Tuesday afternoon. What a way to spend it. Welcome to a special conversation with a special guest. Hello there to ChaosIsMel.
Hi everyone.
How are you?
I'm the best, dude. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes. For those who don't know you, and we've all gotten to know you, I think, over the last week.
Do I have to shill?
Well, you don't have to shill. You can tell us as little or as much about you as you want to.
Do you want me to do a shill? I always do like a baby intro. If you want me to do a baby intro for anyone that doesn't know who I am.
Go for it.
All right. Hey, hi everyone. My name is Mel. Basically, I'm just a B tier ship poster on Twitter. Basically, I'm everyone's most loved or hated communist on the internet. I just kind of talk about stuff. I hang around the panel scene, care about politics, talk about history, yeah, all that fun stuff. If you want to follow my garbage fire of a Twitter, you totally can. I believe it's also my handle, so at ChaosIsMel at twitter.com. Hey, thanks everyone. I appreciate all the memes, all the fun times and conversation, and I'm really glad to be here. With Kurt here today.
Thank you. Yes. So, how would you describe your political leanings?
I usually just call myself a communist. Like if you want to be super hyper specific, I guess the school of thought is Marxist Leninism, but I'm not too particularly attached to the label. It doesn't the labels at the end of the day don't really matter. I call myself a communist by principle, and that's pretty much where it is.
Cool. So, would you be comfortable with the description tanky?
I think tanky is just a thought-terminating cliche that means absolutely nothing. It's just something that gets spread around on the internet and doesn't actually hold any significant weight, because people could literally call anybody a tanky for almost anything. I've seen anarchists called tankies. I've seen people that have fought against ISIS in Syria called tankies. I've seen people in Rojava called tankies. I've seen just internet activists called tankies. It's such a worthless term at this point. It doesn't really mean anything.
Do you not agree with some in the sort of Marxist-Leninist community that they've reclaimed it for their own, in a way, if nothing else, than to steal the power from people who would use it in the way you've described?
Yeah, if people want to reclaim the word, I think they have every right to, because a lot of times communists are usually painted as tankies just because they might have a more, I don't know how to put it, just people that believe in principled communism are always just called tankies. If you want to go into the hyper specific definition of what tanky is, it was the Communist Party of Great Britain, the split with the belief of Stalinism sending in the tanks, the Prague Spring, all that jazz. We could go into the actual historical definition of what that word means, but it doesn't really matter. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I think I don't really care if anyone agrees or disagrees with the 1956 spring uprising or whatever. It was a spring winter uprising. Anyway, that's historical. That's into the deep weeds. Let's not go there.
Right? Yeah, I don't really care about that.
Yes, indeed. So, well, before we even get into all of that, your pronouns are she, Faye, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone can say whatever. I don't really care.
Well,
I mean, say they as well. I'm not too tied to it.
Yeah, no, I've always felt that with they, the only people that get annoyed with they are people who deserve to be annoyed, frankly. because you're at least showing the effort that you're not, going to misgender anyone. Anyway, the point being that you're a trans person of Korean descent, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was, yeah, not just Korean descent, like not just like Korean descent, like I was born in Korea.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
but
I
you
think
li-
people I think people forget that I was born there.
Yeah, but you are you live in America now, yeah?
Yeah, I live in the States. Yeah, currently.
And I only mentioned that not to do the liberal id poll thing, but just to give you to give the audience, I should say, a taste of where you're coming from in terms of lived experience and so on, because that will inform some of the conversation going forward.
Yeah, of course.
So, yes, I suppose the reason we're here is you had a debate with, I don't know how to pronounce it, Vaush? Vaush? I don't know, whatever his name was.
Vaush?
Yeah, that lad.
Vaush?
Yeah. How did that go?
I mean, it was fine. Like, so basically, I knew going in that Vaush was going to be incredibly uncharitable to me. The thing that's I think the thing that's like incredibly frustrating about this whole conversation is I don't think he intended on having a nuanced conversation. I think he wanted to pull his whole like I fight tankies on the internet, I fight libertarians on the internet, I fight, reactionaries on the internet. And I think he was trying to posture some kind of like dunk or I don't know. I don't know what's going on in his head. I'm not going to pathologize him. I'm not going to try and assume his position, but it just seemed from other conversations that he has had with other people that he vastly gave me less charity than he has given reactionaries. And that's kind of my issue. Regardless of how you feel about my stances politically, regardless of how you feel about how I posture, how I display those beliefs, how I talk about my beliefs, whatever, I'm on the side of the left. Like, I don't like reactionaries. I don't like fascists. I don't like TERFs. I don't like groups that promote the idea of like ethnic superiority over one's other autonomy. I don't like states that impugn, top-down hierarchies on other people.
Okay.
I don't know why people have this weird prescription to assume that because I have a hard left political ideology that is a little bit farther left and some of the ideas are a lot different in how we talk about them and how we like look at them and analyze them materially, puts me in the camp of deplorable individuals. That's incredibly frustrating to be equated to, like, I don't know, fascists. It just doesn't make sense. Like, it just seems like ahistorical and it just doesn't make it's complete nonsense. Like, especially given my intersection. And so I hate to pull the liberal id poll bullshit, but it kind of does matter in a way. I think this conversation would go in a completely different direction. 100% if I was like a white male person. And I know that doesn't seem to matter, but it does, because there seems to be a common thread of people of color with radical left-leaning views are treated decently different than as opposed to other people. And I've seen this like on Twitch. I've seen this in streams. I've seen this in the real world, especially how women of color in protest movements are treated as opposed to, non-women of color. This is these are historical things that we could even bring up. We can talk about Stonewall. We can talk about the suffragettes, and how like Black women were intentionally pushed aside because white women wanted to vote for power. Like, these are things that are true in history. And so when I see these things, these sort of like phrases about id poll, or these phrases about, well, what am I allowed and not allowed to say, like echoed on Twitter, it just reminds me that these people have never actually read history or never actually engaged with activism beyond stuff they see over the last, like, I don't know, 20 years, because this is very evident in anyone that has studied the history of activism, like from the 1920s. Like, if you call yourself a socialist, I just expect people to know these things, but evidently a lot of people don't.
You think a lot of the criticism that's come your way has been born of racism and a certain trans misogyny?
No, I don't think all of it has, but I do think some of it is being projected. So I want to basically say that no, not all of it is necessarily trans misogyny. No, not everyone is being racist. That is absurd. I don't think that everyone is doing that. That's silly. Like, come on, let's be real here. But when I see it projected by a community or projected by people that claim to be leftists or claim to be on the side of the left or claim to be allies of people of color, people that want to lift up marginalized voices, or people that talk about these things, I'm just disappointed. Does that make sense? It's not that it's not that I think these people are bad and I want them kicked out of the left. It's that I'm just disappointed. Like, I know a lot about activism history. I know a lot about the history of the BIPOC struggle within the global north and the global south, because when you are a person of color, you have to learn about your history in a completely different way than white folks do. Like, you just have to, because a lot of your history is erased. A lot of your history is just not there. And so there is a little bit of a difference in sort of perspective. And I think that's what this is boiling down to, is just a differing in perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So no, I don't think anyone here. Now, there are some people that did engage in trans misogyny, and there were people that were engaging in racism. Now, do I need to go over every single individual comment and call every single person out? No. But again, if you have those people within your ranks, if you have those people that are within your fans, if you have those people that are within your communities, I think you should relook at your community and go, why is this happening? It's not me canceling Vaush. It's not me canceling his community and saying all his fans are transphobes or all his fans are bad. I've said this with Destiny before. Well, I made some comment about like a bunch of Destiny fans I interacted with were saying some pretty transphobic shit. I wasn't trying to imply that everyone in his community was, but when people are doing it, I would hope that that would make someone want to go through their community and go, hey, if this is happening to somebody, why don't we look into it? It's not to like condemn or to cancel anybody.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
because cancel culture is inherently not real. I care about accountability and growth and self-crit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fair. One criticism I would levy, and I won't necessarily levy this at you, because I think you, like you say, you are a person of intersectional, marginal identities. But I think there are some people in the Marxist-Leninist community, if you will, that are quite hypocritical when it comes to their critique of either Vaush or people like that who have criticised you, and they will use the liberal ID poll thing and use your the fact that you're trans and the fact that you're Korean and all the rest of it as a shield to defend against criticism of your positions, whilst at the same time holding the hypocritical view that IDPOL is like distracting from the class struggle and bourgeois decadence and so on and so forth.
That comes from any community, and I think that cuts to the core of this conversation. Is that can happen in a conservative circle, like with Candace Owens. That can happen in libertarian circles, with the whole libertarian guys with Asian wives kind of thing. This can happen, even in like reactionary I know plenty of reactionary Marxists and reactionary communists that have called me being a very outspoken trans person of color like anti-material, and that I need to focus on just class and not the intersection of race. I have heard it from all sides of the left. This is not just a problem exclusive to MLs or communists. This is a problem that's exclusive to left-wing movements as a whole. But anybody can fall into this. Anyone can shield somebody. I've seen liberals do that, even with Barack Obama, the sort of retconning of Barack Obama being like the cool black president, but also doing things that were very much out of the Bush era.
True, but I mean, and that is true. Everyone's potentially capable, or all groups are potentially capable of it. But you must admit there is a pretty toxic culture in Marxist-Leninist circles of being anti-ID poll. And I think that, like I said, this isn't even a criticism of you necessarily, but of
I think
MLs
it's
more generally.
Poll in a different way. I think the way liberals approach identity politics is different the way communists approach identity politics. I think there is definitely a perspective difference. So when I think of identity politics, I think focusing on people's identities by micro-analyzing them or atomizing them to being just that person is ridiculous. So, for example, I don't think because I'm Korean, I am the authority on like Korea. I think people should at least consider my viewpoint and not talk down to me and tell me like, so when I hear like someone who's never actually read anything about Korea, like beyond like a history book, or they don't know anything about Korea beyond, you know, some data that they read from a UN report in 2009. And I actually have sources, or I have studies, or I have like enough anecdotal evidence to kind of show, you know, because like, again, like if I have enough data to basically prove that, hey, the situation with the, you know, my heritage or my group of people is a lot more complicated than reducing it down to numbers. Hey, can we connect this anecdotal experience to the data that you are sharing and find the contradictions within that data, and let's have a conversation about it. I think that's like incredibly that is how like MLs and communists look at things, right? Data is very important, and I think there was a lot of people that were misconstruing my words and assuming that I don't care about data. That's incredibly false. I think data is important, but if your evidence that if you're just going off data alone and not actually looking at what the study was based on, what people it's targeting, what year it was, because there is a huge difference between performing data on Korea in 2019 than a study from Korea in like 1946 or 1980. Like the differentiating of opinions are completely different. Like someone even in Destiny's community pointed this out. Like I actually read a post where someone said, hey, where someone chimed in and said, you know, I'm a first generation Korean, and there definitely is a noticeable difference between, you know, Koreans that, you know, had an opinion of the North, you know, as opposed to having opinions of the North now. Like opinions change over time, and they are very much vastly influenced by geopolitics. And so when I was talking about Korea and talking about these subjects, I wasn't trying to say that like, well, you know, if someone was bringing up a data that it was incorrect, but like, hey, if you're gonna use this data piece to solidify a point, then we have to look at all of the other bits of data that led up to that too, because it's way more complicated. And that's really the only thing that I try to bring to the table when I talk about these things, like anything in Twitch. Like I've always tried to be historical about it, because I think a lot of people don't know history. Like a lot of history in the United States is unfortunately like hidden behind propaganda, and there's some history that is not. And so it's just being able to go, hey, this is stuff that is being, you know, perpetuated by the state, and this is stuff that actually, you know, that real people are talking about. Like I've actually read some Vox articles that have really good historical data talking points that are not, you know, that are not from the state. And I've also read some stuff from Vox and mainstream, you know, news articles, like more liberal publications that are, you know, definitely have sources that are pretty suspect, that, you know, pretty much come from the State Department. So it's being able to differentiate between what data is elaborating your worldview versus what data is like changing your worldview, and like what biases that you have. And I think that's like really important in terms of having that conversation.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So do you think that there are legitimate reasons that one might have a negative viewpoint of the North Korean state outside of State Department propaganda?
Probably. I mean, I do think that the history of the Korean War has been largely talked about as a U.S. victory or a U.S. withdrawal or a U.S. stalemate. The side of
Or a
the
US
history of what
a US dab?
yeah, or a U.S. dab. I think I don't think people realize that like over 20% of the population, like in the North, was absolutely just straight up, you know, killed. Like
Yeah.
this wasn't just this wasn't like, oh, these people were nicely killed on the battlefield. These were women and men and children and soldiers that were, you know, bombed to death and napalm dropped on them. These people were executed. Like this wasn't just, you know, this was predicated, you know, extrajudicially murder. And I think once you start framing it that way, once you start talking about the history, you actually change your perspective on the war entirely, because I don't want people to sympathize with the DPRK because they were murdered. I want people to sympathize with the struggle that the separation between these two countries is ultimately just, you know, bad for geopolitics. It's bad for Korea, and it's bad for the countries that are using both of these nations as either client states or buffer states to subvert geopolitical power. Like it just seems kind of silly that America has the ability to use Korea, especially the South, as a military buffer state, and it is frustrating to watch the North be used as a client state by China to subvert a protective geopolitical power struggle.
This might seem like semantics, but I think it's a rather important point, especially in terms of shedding light on maybe a bias that I think you have. You're prepared to use the example of South Korea as a US buffer state, which
the definition of buffer state is a state that is operated by economic and political power, mainly utilizing military bases. China does not have any military bases in North Korea. So it cannot be a buffer state if there are no military bases.
No, that's not at all what a buffer state is. A buffer state literally is the word buffer. It's to create a physical barrier between one thing and another thing.
But it's not creating a physical barrier because there's nothing
there. Well, no, it is.
It's not. What is North Korea is an independent country.
Well, that's
how is China using it as a buffer state?
That's a slightly farcical use of the word independent.
No, it's not.
But
how is China using North Korea as a buffer state?
There is a physical barrier, i.e., there is a
China-friendly
nation.
China never created North Korea.
No. I'm not saying they did. I'm saying there is a China-friendly nation between what is essentially U.S. military dump, which is South Korea right now, and China itself. It is a physical barrier between those two things.
It's not a physical barrier because there's no invasion. Again.
I'm not saying there is an invasion. There doesn't need to be an invasion. The point is,
yes, there does.
It's creating.
Yes, there does. Buffer states only exist during wartime. The Korean War is not technically officially over, and so
that would then. I mean, I was actually going to disagree with you, but your own point therefore literally allows for the physical existence of buffer states, and if the war is still ongoing. But the point is, it doesn't have to be in war.
But the definition of ongoing war varies from person to person, right?
Well, of course it does. But
the United States calls it an armistice, but North and South Korea do not consider it a war.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's largely a Cold War, although it occasionally gets a little bit hot at the border.
It's not a Cold War.
No, I said it's largely a Cold War, as in
it's not largely a Cold War. It's not a Cold War.
Right, a Cold War, as in they're not literally exchanging fire for the most part.
It's not a Cold War.
What is it then?
We need to no.
What is it then?
It's not a Cold War.
Okay, what is it then? Is it a hot war?
It's not a hot war or a Cold War. It's literally just
a lukewarm war.
It's not even a lukewarm war. It's just two nations being separated by political state actors. That is the entire reaction to North Korea and South Korea. No, do you want me to bring up sources? Because essentially North Korea and South Korea are the the governments that they have in power right now are the state responses to the occupations of the Japanese, the United States, and the USSR. I can bring up an entire list of sources.
Well, and partly China. Let's not forget China were a part of that too.
China was not a part of that.
China was a part of that.
Sources. China was not a part of it.
Chinese troops.
Chinese troops does not mean they were supporting okay.
China was a part of it. I'm not saying it was right or wrong. I'm not even making any moral condemnation or celebration of any of the actors. I'm saying China were a part of that, and the fact that you're not prepared to accept that is ridiculous.
You use your words, you are exactly framing it this way, because every time I push back at you, you are telling me that I'm wrong and not giving me the chance to explain this. This is like every single other person that I have ever pushed back on this. Whenever I push back on this, I am immediately told that this is incorrect, or that I am just because none of these things are true.
No, I'm not saying none of the things are true. Japan was involved in that. America was involved in that. That's absolutely true.
Do you know how deep Japan was involved in the occupation between both states in 1945 to 1948?
Not between 1945 to 48, but I know about the war years. That's a thing I've studied. So, but I accept that Japan was a part of that, and I'm not, like I say, within the confines of this conversation, I'm not making a moral condemnation of any of the nations involved there. I'm just saying China were a part of that,
right.
And the fact that you're not prepared to accept that.
You are automatically assigning the position when you keep saying it's a buffer state. Again,
because it is. It creates a physical barrier. It creates a physical barrier between a US-friendly state and China. It creates a physical barrier to protect China, in the same way that the Eastern European bloc states protected the USSR from NATO.
No, it did not serve as a buffer state between the USSR. The USSR actually, during the Sino-Soviet split, essentially, the USSR abandoned the North. The only thing the North was actually getting things from was just, the only thing that the DPRK was remotely getting from the Soviets was just aid, and that was it. There was no weapons, there was no tanks, it was just economic aid.
What's that got to do with What's that got to do with the fact that China was involved in that?
Everything.
Go on. Well, okay.
China wasn't involved in the DPRK until after the fall of the Soviet Union. So China didn't have an extensively deep. Right.
But I'm not making a historical claim. I'm not saying it was a buffer state from the split.
But you have to talk about that. You have to.
That's
because
fine.
The definition of buffer state changes depending on who you talk to in historical context. Because because some people will call the DPRK a buffer state during the Korean conflict. Some people will call the DPRK a buffer state now. Some people will call I have heard this definition about the buffer state between North Korea being called a buffer state through several different definitions, several different framings in history. And so I want to make sure what you are trying to say.
I am trying to say creates a physical barrier, an impediment from America having military bases on the southern border.
No, it has to involve military bases or physical political power, and there are none. There is no leverage.
No. It doesn't. No, it doesn't have to have anything of that sort.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes,
no.
100% it does.
Satrapies do not require the main head of the empire to have. As long as you're essentially paying tribute.
By that definition, any country can be a fucking buffer state. You are severely reducing something to a
buffer state has to be a physical barrier. A client state doesn't have to be connected physically at all to any other state. A buffer state is strictly a barrier between one place and another place, right? For geopolitical interests. And let's just turn it around for a second and say, when you say about South Korea, you described
North Korea a buffer. Okay, again, when you call North Korea a buffer state, you are removing the independent factor of North Korea acting as its own country within its own confines of its own decision making. When you automatically leverage
to a degree,
state, you're basically saying that this country has no autonomy and it's at the mercy of whichever country is declaring it a buffer state.
I'm not saying it removes it completely. It removes a fair amount. There's only a certain amount of leverage that North Korea has in terms of independence.
They have plenty of fucking leverage.
Again, I would contend otherwise. But the point is,
this is completely a ridiculous false equivalency, and you know this.
No, not at all. Let's turn it around for a second. You were happy to describe South Korea as a buffer state, but yet the only buffer it seems to be producing is literally a physical barrier between itself and the sea.
South Korea is actually a buffer state between Japan and the United States' influence in Asia. It is 100% a buffer state.
Japan and US influence it. Hang on. How can it create a buffer when both Japan and South Korea are allies of the United States? How is it creating a buffer to that?
Do you know the South Korean Japanese-US do you know the Japanese and South Korean relations and how incredibly rocky that they have?
Yeah, they're fraught. Yeah, but the point being is they're both US allies. So how is it?
But
they're not allies with each other. They don't have to be. They don't have to be.
Yes, they do.
No,
they do because they have to have a vested interest in this political power. Again,
they both, in their own way.
You are just assigning buffer state to just only the definition of a physical barrier, which is completely not how people see this. I'm sorry, but you're wrong.
I'm not saying it's. I'm not saying it's just a buffer state. I'm not saying it's just a physical barrier. I'm saying that is a precondition for that, but it's not just that. There are geopolitical interests involved in that.
Everyone is
and obviously,
I've been trying to dismiss that argument with you and everybody else for weeks. I do not care about this physical landline anymore because it does not matter.
I assure you it does. And I'll tell you for why. Would China be happy to have US military bases at its southeastern border?
No.
Of course not. So it's created a barrier by financially propping up and diplomatically propping up the North Korean government.
North Korea is not making them a buffer state. This is fucking a ridiculous reduction of how that alliance has been working. Again,
North Korea would have collapsed after the fall of the Soviet Union if China had not stepped in.
No, it would not have.
I think there's absolutely no way it could have survived without it. It already went through a famine during that period.
Like if you think that country would just magically collapse, then you have read nothing about
No.
history
The
from
government
1900 all the way to now.
The government would collapse. The people would still be there. Much of the infrastructure would still be there.
The government wouldn't collapse at all. That's completely incredibly false.
They were pretty weak anyway, and it underwent a famine even with Chinese help.
Okay, what about South Korea? South Korea's GDP didn't actually pass the DPRKs until 1986. That country didn't fucking collapse.
No, it didn't collapse because it was given aid by the United States government.
It wasn't given aid just by the United States. Do you want to go
it doesn't
over
matter.
every single
I
aid
don't care
package in the UN? We can do this.
I don't care to whom you think they're a vassal state. They're a vassal state.
No,
both of the Koreas are being used as vassal states, and only one of them can realistically be described as a buffer state because only one of them creates a physical barrier between anything and anything else.
Fucking Christ, dude.
What? I mean, how is South Korea a buffer? What is it a buffer against?
It's a buffer.
No, what is it a buffer against? What does it buffer? What are the two sides of the buffer that is South Korea? It's the sea and North Korea.
It's being used as a buffer against China, and China specifically, not the North.
No, it's being used as a client state against Korea because it creates a military ring around China, right? That's fine,
right.
But it's not a buffer.
It's completely just being used as a state against China. That's
of course it is.
The only thing South Korea has a vested military interest in.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
The United States hates South Korea as an ally? No, I don't think that at all.
They don't care. They're useful. That's all that they're interested in.
Right. We all know this.
Yeah.
If we agree on this, then I don't understand what the fuck your argument is.
Because because it's technical definition stuff, but they're not a buffer state.
You're arguing semantics that no one fucking cares about.
No, they are important. They are important because you're prepared to accept South Korea as a buffer state, but not North Korea. And I suggest that tells us about your implicit bias towards China.
It's not implicit bias towards China. This is not an implicit bias towards China. Again, I do not care about China's geopolitical influence. Again, my politics start and end at the unification of both Koreas as one country. This is why I fucking hate this conversation, because every single person assumes that I'm standing China. So here's my fucking line. I respect what China is doing in the world, and I understand that. I have a lot of criticisms of China, but you keep conflating China with my issues or my deals with North and South Korea. I don't care about that shit. I only care about one thing, and I care about unification. Again, this is my problem with your argument, is you went in through this entire discussion trying to assign me my weird simping thing for China that all of you people seem to think that I have, which is just not true.
I put it to you that there's a reason that people think you're... Because
these people don't know anything about geopolitics. None of these people actually know the history of China and the relations between Korea going back 1,000 years. None of these people understand how intricate these fucking relationships are. Basic.
When we're talking about geopolitics in the modern age, 1,000 years ago is irrelevant.
This is fucking relevant. This is 100% relevant. If you do not understand the history of Asia, you do not understand why these states exist in the way that in which they do. It's the same thing with Vietnam. The border war between Vietnam and China in the 60s, that's an old dispute that goes back 1,000 years. No,
but the point is
that's important to note.
No, it's important to note.
Had that skirmish.
But it's only relatively recent, so the last, say, couple of hundred years in any given geopolitical situation that allows
intergenerational trauma is. We see this with black folks in the United States. We see the intergenerational trauma of Israelis and Palestinians
within the last couple of hundred years, because you can't
ignoring it.
I can't relate to Henry VIII. We lived in the same land. It was too long ago. Geopolitics doesn't work on that kind of scale.
Yes, it does.
Obviously not.
You have to be historical. You have to.
No, you have to be historical. Trust me. As a person with a history degree, I understand perfectly well that you have to be historical. I love history. I love it with a deep and abiding passion. But the point is, geopolitics does not work on the scale of thousands of years. When wars start, it's not
It's
because of
relevant
thousands of
information to
years.
Understanding why things are. You're actually being incredibly ahistorical for someone who claims that they care about history. This is why all of these people don't know how complicated this shit is because none of them have any sort of historical balance. They're just looking at this shit through states and states alone within the last 50 years, and that's frustrating.
Well, no. Well, I wouldn't say the last 50 years because it has to be within.
No. Let me finish. Most people don't even know that South Korea was a dictatorship for over 70 years, and partially ruled by Japanese fascists. That's a really important part to note. Why the country acts the way that it does in its relation with the United States.
Absolutely.
So if you agree with me, then you're just saying that it doesn't matter is just ridiculous.
No. I'm saying within the last say 100 years. That region has undergone some amazing, crazy, fucked up shit. The Japanese occupation during the Second World War was an absolutely devastating and despicable thing. That informs modern today. Going all the way back to we'll get onto Xinjiang shortly. Going back to 60 BC or 60 AD or whatever. That's not relevant to geopolitics now. It just isn't.
It's 100% relevant to geopolitics. Full stop.
No, it's relevant to history. It's important to know, but it's not. People don't do things because a thing happened 2,000 years ago. That's nonsense. It's relevant
to history and geopolitics. Full stop. It always has been. You are absolutely blatantly ignorant if you think that none of these things are mutually exclusive. I don't know how many times I have to talk about this with people. I'm not saying you need to go back to I'm not saying that you need to pull examples from 1110 and say, oh well, this means. This is exactly how it's going to happen. I'm not saying we have to path out our history. That's not my claim here. What I'm saying is we have to look at these things and examine them in time because we are repeating patterns. If nothing has changed dramatically between the relations of these countries, then obviously the whole path that we have been going on the last 30 years has not worked because Korea was a united country. The idea of Korean unification is not an old idea. It's not something that people just made up.
No, absolutely. It's one country separated by two shit states.
And there's plenty of there's plenty of evidence, there's plenty of data, there's plenty of fucking anecdotal evidence of pretty much everyone in Korea wanting at some point a unified country. How that goes about, I don't know, because that's up to the people to decide. That is basically the politic of the day. The issue that I have is people are conflating this way too much with China, and it's not that. I would even make the argument that China doesn't have that much influence over the DPRK as people claim that it does.
Absolutely. This is absolutely a hangover of the Cold War. This is a proxy war between America in South Korea and China in North Korea. That's precisely what this is.
It is not. It is going to be if there's Can I push back? It is going to be if there's boots on the ground and shit, and there's actually a war. But as of current, it is not a proxy war.
Well, that's why I call it a largely Cold War, because it's a proxy Cold War. It's a hangover from the Cold War.
Come on, now you just sound ridiculous. It's not a proxy war and it's not a Cold War. It's a stalemate, and let's just leave it at that.
Well, hang on. A stalemate. Why does it being a stalemate preclude it being a Cold War?
Because a Cold War is an antiquated term to describe power dynamics that don't exist right now.
No, that would be the Cold War, because the Cold War as such is over. That's why I say it's a hangover from the Cold War. The Cold War wasn't a stalemate. The Cold War was literally fought over proxy wars. There wasn't a stalemate to be had. And I'm arguing that this is a continuation of that. South Korea is one of the vestiges of that exact policy. It's a completely separate thing at this point. That's what I'm trying to say. At this point, it's completely separate. It's not. Well, it's separate in as much as the Cold War doesn't exist. So the larger geopolitical argument is over, right? Not to go Fukuyama with it, because it's not the end of history, obviously. But the larger conflict is over. But China, as the de facto emperor to the satrapy in Pyongyang, and Washington D.C. ruling over Seoul, it's a continuation of that same dynamic post-Cold War. China is not the satrament to fucking North Korea. That's just fucking ridiculous. This is an absolutely absurd fucking comparison and absurd conversation. If China was not signing the diplomatic check of North Korea, do you think for a second America wouldn't invade? Or wouldn't have invaded pre-nuclear weapons? I don't want to play hypotheticals with people like this. No. So no, I'm not going to fucking answer that question. Okay, because you know full well what the answer would be. No, I don't actually, and neither do you. Yes, I do. So, I know full well. Because the Korean War already happened, and we know what America tried to do when they were pre-nuclear. We know this already played out.
America wanted to nuke Korea even before they had America wanted to nuke, wanted to drop nukes.
They did. No, I mean before North Korea. Before North Korea had nuclear weapons, is what the point I'm making. That's the only reason they won't be invaded now, is because North Korea has nuclear weapons and nuclear states don't get invaded. It wouldn't matter if they have nuclear weapons at this point, because they could still do something. It doesn't matter. America doesn't mind, as we saw in the killing fields of Vietnam. These hypotheticals are actually fucking really insulting and ridiculous. Because you actually don't fucking know, and neither do I know. So don't play fucking hypotheticals with me over situations that actually involve people's lives. No, but that's the point. It does involve people's lives, and we know that America, as we saw in the killing fields of Vietnam, does not mind mincing a generation of working class kids into the dust. Okay, it will happily do that, and it would do so over North Korea, because America only cares about fucking power. They don't care about their own people, and they certainly don't care about the people of Southeast Asia. Fucking insight to this. You are just assuming. You are just literally assuming based on really fucking ridiculous claims. So hang on. So China's relationship with North Korea. Are you now taking the rather odd position for a defender of China to say that America would be too nicey with North Korea to bother doing that? I don't necessarily think America's going to be too nicey with North Korea. I just think you're conflating what China wants to do with the United States' decisions, and I think that's completely ridiculous. I'm not arguing China's involvement in any way. I was saying if China weren't signing the diplomatic check, so to speak, and backing up. Any diplomatic check. What diplomatic check are they signing? Essentially, America knows full well that they can't just invade and have military bases on China's southern border. China would go to war over that shit, and they know it, right? No, they would not. If China weren't defending North Korea. If China weren't defending, okay, you can play silly games if you wish, Mel, but whatever. We all know the truth. No, I think if China weren't the leader there, America would happily invade North Korea, because they already did. Every single one of you guys do, and I don't want to entertain these hypotheticals because they're fucking ridiculous. You actually don't fucking know anything more than I do. I'm not claiming to know anything more than you do. All I'm saying is that I'm prepared to be more honest about it and tell. I'm prepared to say a thing that you know. And I don't actually care. I do not fucking care about these hypotheticals. They're fucking pointless. They don't solve anything, and they're ridiculous. You know this, and I know this. This is all bait bullshit. Okay, let's move away from hypotheticals then to a real situation. Be it a thing that you agree with or disagree with, certainly it's accusations that have taken place. Let's move from the peninsula to the other side of China, to the state of Xinjiang, which has come under a fair amount of international scrutiny over the time of the last sort of few years. What is it you think is... It hasn't actually been happening for a few years, actually. This has been going all the way back to 2007. Do you actually know about that? Would you like to talk about Xinjiang pre-2000 to 2007? Do you know any of the history of that? I can't say that I do particularly, but is it relevant in terms of what the actual slaughter? It's 100% relevant with how Xinjiang is the way today. Are we talking about the terrorism? We're not just talking about terrorism, we're talking about ethnic strife between Han Chinese and the predominant Muslim population that has happened. By all means, tell us whatever you think is relevant to this. What do you mean tell us whatever you think? You can literally Wikipedia this or Google it right now. I can, but the point being is that you were like, do you want to talk about 2007? Okay, well, tell me about 2007 in Xinjiang. No, you can use Google. You know it exists. Okay. If you obviously care about Xinjiang, you would know the history. Okay, we'll look it up then. None of you guys seem to know, so I'm not doing the legwork for you. Go ahead and do it. Okay, Xinjiang 2007, the Xinjiang conflict, right. Known as the Uyghur Chinese conflict, is an ongoing ethnic conflict in China in the northwest autonomous region of Xinjiang. Okay, so yeah, this is the 1997 Urumqi bus bombings. So it's the terrorist attacks that's now the People's War on Terror, yeah? I just want to make sure that you're well aware. Okay, well, I'm loosely aware of that part of it, but there seems to be this sort of disconnect with people that only equate the Uyghur conflict as something that's only been happening over the last couple of years, and it's just kind of ridiculous how not the conflict, not the conflict, the genocide. That's the difference. The conflict is essential to the conflict. Understanding the conflict is essential to what is happening currently right now. Okay, but I don't think there's ever a conflict that could take place that would ever be okay to then do a genocide about. So okay, well, what proof do you have that it's currently happening? Well, hang on. Before we even get into that, would you at least accept that the fact that there's a conflict predating the accusations of genocide? Let's just put a pin in that for a second, right? Doesn't matter that there's an armed conflict before then. It would never ever justify a genocide.
I mean, no conflict ever justifies any genocide.
Okay,
that's
good.
100%
So that's
true. It doesn't matter.
That's good
we know
then.
this.
So how is
we can establish this with almost any country. We can establish this with the NATO bombings in Kosovo.
Indeed.
We can establish this with the Armenian genocide in 1912. We
Yeah.
can establish this with the pre-war conflict in World War II. We can establish this with the conflict in 2008 to 2012 in Odessa, Georgia. We can keep on going because if you're going to specifically bring up this conflict, then you have to bring up every single other state period that led up to a conflict that actually equated in genocide.
No, you don't.
Yes, we do.
Of course you don't.
Yes,
That's
we
ridiculous. And by the way, can I just,
ridiculous.
on a point of history, just a point of history because it annoyed me, in the conversation you had with Dr. Himed, you said that the 1912 Armenian genocide was the first genocide ever, which was just completely wrong.
No, it's considered the first record. It was considered the first recording of the usage of the word genocide.
Oh, the uses of the word. Okay, my bad.
That's what I said.
Okay, my bad. Because I was going to go with Romans and shit. Anyway, doesn't matter.
No,
right.
We're talking about the official definition, I guess, like in the modern era, which is important to know because, like, obviously these things have been happening throughout history. But if we want to solidify what history means to people, we should at least know where we start, right?
Okay, but why is it that you would have to bring up every other war leading to a genocide in order to condemn any other war leading to a genocide?
Because you have to be, I believe that you have to be historically and ideologically consistent if we're trying to condemn things, right?
Well, you can condemn it, but why do you have to bring it up? When discussing one particular thing, why do you have to mention the other things?
How we get to these conflicts is the predominant way in how we solve them, and seeing how other nations go about them is really imperative to understanding the history.
Okay, well, that's interesting that you mentioned that there's some sort of a pre-need, if you will, to solve the problem, because you were saying in your conversation with Vaush that you can't physically go there and affect the situation. So what difference does it make in terms of needing to understand how to solve the problem?
Okay, I'm going to ask you two questions because everyone keeps asking me the same question. So I'm going to tie this up for you. Currently, as of standing, there is no UN, ICC, there is no absolutely indiscriminate proof that anything is happening to the point that matches the definition of legal genocide where people are being murdered. Are there camps,
not true.
Are there vocational
not
camps
remotely
where people
true.
where people are currently right now? 100% yes. Are there probably war crimes that are happening and crimes against humanity where people are getting hurt or killed? Possibly. But there is currently no final solution thing that is currently happening right now.
Whoa. It doesn't have to be a final solution thing.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't remotely.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you two things. If this was actually happening right now, as we know, what is your solution to dealing with China?
I don't think there is a solution, but why does there have to be a solution in order for it to be condemnable?
I want to know, what's your solution? How do you deal with China then? So if there
I
is
don't think there is.
Xinjiang, what is your solution?
I don't think there is a solution, but that doesn't mean that the actions being taken place in China aren't condemnable.
Why can't you give me one?
Because there isn't one.
You're so quick to tell me that I'm denying genocide. So if there is a genocide happening, then what's your solution?
No. Right, okay, Mel. This is very, very simple, and I know you're not stupid. I'm not going to do the Vaush thing of calling you stupid because I know that's not true. You're a smart enough person to get this, right?
You're not. You don't even want to answer a question. So,
no, there is no solution. You keep asking me for a solution.
In Xinjiang right now,
there is no solution. Because we can't militarily do anything, and I wouldn't really want to anyway, because it should be done normally, but the Chinese government are seemingly impervious to international pressure. They don't give a fuck. They're going to continue doing it. So I don't know that there is any actual way we can stop it. That does not mean we can't accept that a thing is happening, if indeed the thing is happening, and I would contend it is. How
do we stop it then?
And condemn it.
How do you intervene in a genocide then? How do we stop this, right?
No, it's got nothing to do with me intervening. I think we both accept that neither you nor I can do anything.
What's your solution?
Okay.
What's your solution?
There is no. I've literally said there is no solution.
All right. So
but that doesn't mean you can't accept that it's happening and condemn it.
So if there's no solution and there's no actual like UN or even like definition of like people ethnically being murdered in Xinjiang.
No.
And you
Don't
have a solution for China.
Don't
then you have
straw man
nothing.
what genocide is. Don't
That's not
straw
a
man
strawman
what
logic.
genocide.
You have
You
nothing.
don't have to kill any individual person or even any group of people in order for it to be genocide. You can culturally genocide people.
Oh, so you're changing the
The
definition.
No,
So
I'm
now
not changing the
is
definition.
culturally changed.
If you go to the UN definition, it involves
Hey,
cultural
look,
genocide.
Okay, look. So there's a cultural genocide happening currently right now at the U.S. border.
Yes.
What's your solution?
Well, I don't even know. Again, I'm not entirely sure there is a solution. The military-industrial complex and racism in America are very strong. Again, I don't know that there is a solution.
There's a cultural genocide.
But there is a cultural genocide taking place there, yes.
In northern Canada for over 150 years. What's your solution?
Why? Let's assume, just for the sake of it, right, there are no solutions that I can offer here because I'm just some prick making videos in his fucking spare room, right? The point isn't.
1,200 Armenians were killed by.
Yes, they were.
Turkish
That's
drones
genocide.
in the Azerbaijan-Armenian conflict.
That's genocide. But the point being, Mel, is you're prepared to accept all those other genocides as genocides, but not what's happening in Xinjiang, which is the same.
One currently happening according to any sort of identified
Yeah,
definition.
there is. They're literally driving the culture. They're driving the culture from these people. What do you think re-education involves, Mel? They're making them into not being fucking Uyghurs anymore. They're driving. They're culturally removing them there. Yes, there is. There's plenty of evidence of that. There are fucking eyewitnesses. They're destroying mosques.
If there were people that were being culturally moved, we would see massive movement and migrations of people out of Xinjiang to East Turkmenistan. We would be seeing that on satellite photos. We'd be seeing this with migration patterns, but none of that is even remotely being seen. So what is your solution?
Again, I don't know why you keep asking me what my solution is when I don't have a solution, and I've already told you I don't have a solution. That doesn't mean it isn't happening, when it clearly is happening. They're re-educating people to remove Uyghurness from them.
You're so passionate about this genocide, and you're so quick to yell at me for my opinion on it, then why don't you have a solution for it?
Well, no, hang on. The thing is, Mel, right? You brought up those other genocides, and you'll notice how quickly I went, yeah, that's a genocide, it's disgusting. That's the difference. I'm not yelling at you because... I'm not yelling at you because there's one genocide that's worse. There's only one of us here denying a genocide, and there's only one genocide being denied.
We're just going to keep ignoring them.
No,
so here's the difference
I'm not
here.
ignoring them, Mel.
These are actually happening. So these are happening right now.
Yeah.
No one is doing anything about it. No one gives a fuck.
No, plenty of people give a fuck. Frankly, Mel, for terms of service reasons, I can't quite describe this, but I think direct action should be taken against these ICE centres. Right? It needs to stop. I don't know, Mal. I'm not even an American citizen. I can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about Xinjiang either. But the point is, there's only one of us denying a genocide here.
So why do you care about this subject so much?
Because you're denying a fucking genocide. I'm not worked up about any of those other genocides right at this very second, because neither of us are denying that genocide. Neither of us are denying Armenia, or the southern border, or the residential schools in Canada.
Hey, look, calm down here, buddy. I know you're getting really upset. I know you're really mad that I say these words because it just tilts everyone off.
Yeah, denying genocide is quite annoying. Yes, it is quite irksome.
Quite annoying, yeah, because I'm the only person that is tilting everyone over this, because I'm the one person that has just decided that, maybe we should have a more pragmatic approach to how we view war crimes in the world, because we're clearly not doing anything in the United States.
Pragmatic. We need to be pragmatic towards war crimes.
So where would we do anything in China? Obviously, nothing is happening because clearly the world just does not care about war crimes.
Okay, Mel, right. If your socialism involves pragmatism towards crimes against humanity, it's not socialism. I don't even know what it is. It's authoritarian madness is what it is.
Authoritarianism exists in every single country.
Well, I suppose to a degree, if you want to use a kind of more anarchist anarchist definition of the state being the justified use of violence, yeah, that's authoritarianism to a degree.
Holland is just as authoritarian as, say, Brazil.
I don't think that's true.
It's 100% true.
Is the Netherlands as authoritarian as China?
100%.
So there's a firewall around the internet in the Netherlands?
I mean, there's probably laws within Holland that prevent, like certain people of color or certain marginalized groups from doing things. So yeah, it's technically authoritarian. That's not very free of me. It's not very free of them.
Well, there might be some marginalisation. I don't know that they're engaged in a cultural genocide against Muslims.
Oh, okay, so it's just China. It's just you guys just love. I can pull out any other example about any other country, but you guys really love to jump to China.
I'm not denying there's racism in the Netherlands, but you seem to not understand that severity matters.
You guys seem to not understand
being a little bit racist is different to doing a genocide.
The same things that China would be doing, but because it's China doing it, it's different.
No. The United States government is fucking immoral, and every leader of every of the major organisations in that nation needs to be put the fucking jail. Okay, it's an evil monstrosity. Don't for a second think I'm here standing the US or fucking imperialism. Okay. Don't try and strawman me with this bullshit.
Though, but you really love picking on China.
No. I'm not picking on China. I'm not picking on China in the slightest. I'm annoyed that you are denying an obvious fucking genocide. That's the thing that's working me up here. It's got nothing to do with the fact that it's China doing it. Because, like I've just said, the fucking United States and the people engaged with ICE, every leader of ICE needs to be terms of service. I can't possibly describe what needs to happen to those people.
Yeah, it's really disappointing when I see all of BreadTube and all of the Vaush and
I'm not BreadTube.
All the Twitch people. Doesn't matter. When I see left-wing content creators focus more on what's happening in China than anything that's been happening on the U.S. border over the last couple of years, it's pretty disappointing.
No, well, that's certainly not the case with me. I've talked far more about how I've literally 3 years ago I was describing ICE as the modern Gestapo. So you've not got me on that point. You can never go at everyone else, but that's not me. Whatever you think that allegation is, it's not me.
That's fine. Well, I'm glad you're doing good work in the world.
Thank you. Yes, what was the point I was going to make? On the point of this is the thing that makes me that is peculiar to me about all of this. You seem to be, to a certain extent, standing China, and as a Marxist-Leninist...
Tell me why I'm standing China.
You tend to often take the same propagandist line that Beijing wants to put out.
I just don't like the fact the United States' line since Pompeo was Secretary of State has been an economic and military buildup against China, which is going to put us into a new Cold War, which
it goes back beyond even Pompeo,
parts of the world. That is my issue. I don't really care about whether or not there's the genocide happening or not, because if it's actually happening and we can't stop it, then you're correct.
You don't care that it's it's irrelevant if it's happening.
It's not that it's irrelevant. It's that you're correct in that we cannot do anything. So by your logic, we cannot do anything. There is only one option.
So what's the point in denying it then?
That's not denying it. That is the
You are denying it. You're literally saying there's no evidence that this is taking place. You literally said it earlier.
Now there is not evidence taking place because we have, the State Department and Andrew Sani, and we can go over all the individual sources that are being used too, if you want.
And you're just going to say these are CIA shills, aren't you?
No, there's actually some sources that are actually Chinese that are not, like conspiracy theory. I do understand that. If you're going to paint me as someone who just thinks that everything is the CIA propaganda because I'm a communist, then you're fucking wrong.
No. But the point
to have that opinion is wrong.
No. But the point is, you said earlier there was no evidence, and now you're saying there is evidence. So I
didn't say there was evidence. I said there were Chinese sources that were used.
I'll ask you straightforward then.
It's not saying that there is evidence. Please do not mince my words.
Okay, I'll have to ask you straight up then, and you can answer with genocide bad uwu if you wish. It's of course your own business. Is there a genocide taking place against any group in Xinjiang?
There is currently no, by the legal definition of people being ethnically murdered in Xinjiang province, that is not currently happening.
It doesn't have to involve murder.
No, yes, I am defining this because that is how we define genocide in the modern
era.
No,
it isn't.
Yes, it is. It is 100% how we should.
No, it isn't.
You are shifting the goalpost to cultural genocide because it's convenient for you.
No, it's not.
None of this. 100%.
None of this is convenient for me. Genocide is not fucking convenient on any level being done by anybody. For any fucking reason. None of this is convenient.
So let me say this. If the definition of genocide is cultural, then you could literally say that about almost any kind of people. The definition is so broad.
No, you can't. No. It's look, for instance, are the residential schools of Canada, are you aware of that system?
I am 100% aware of
Was that genocide?
In Canada. Yeah, 100% it's genocide.
Why was it genocide? Because they weren't murdering them.
Yes, they were.
Well, they were outside of that, but I asked you specifically about the residential schools. Were the residential schools genocide?
Yes, 100%.
But they weren't killing people.
It led up to genocide, so yeah.
Right, but okay, but so it led up to genocide, but was it actually genocide?
Yes, it's 100% genocide. Of a
So
people, yeah.
why is re-education of Uyghurs to become not Uyghur anymore in Xinjiang
how do you know
not
they're being
genocide?
re-educated to be not Uyghur?
Because we had eyewitness accounts from people who were there. We know what's going on in those
places. People are
places.
actually from East Turkmenistan and not actually living in the province of Xinjiang. Have you actually cross-witnessed the witness reports from what places that they're from in China? I don't think you have, because there are plenty of interviews that are there that say otherwise.
So, regardless of any eyewitness that comes forward, you're going to find some way to try and weasel your way out of this, aren't you?
No, this isn't a weasel. This is actually things that happen. There's actual evidence, but like no one wants to look at that evidence because everyone just wants to call it fake and Chinese propaganda.
In the same way that
this is the world that we live in.
Okay. In the same way that a lot of people will just say it's CIA propaganda.
No, I don't think everything's CIA propaganda. I mean, if there is something that I know that is for sure an op, I will say it.
Okay, but
I don't walk
to
around and
return
think everything's CIA propaganda. That's completely ridiculous.
to return for a second, then
uncharitable.
Your definition that genocide has to involve murder. Even though you then concede that the residential schools would.
Humanity. Why would it not involve murder? It's literally the highest crime that could ever be pronounced.
Do you want to look at the
highest crime against humanity?
Do you want to look at the which China signed on to, by the way? Do you want to look at the United Nations definition?
I've read that up and down. There's nothing that matches.
Okay, well, I'll literally go onto the thing for you.
The UN is supposed to go to China this summer for an unsanctioned report to pretty much go into almost every single building, and the UN has denied it. The European Union has been given unfettered access to Xinjiang and has denied it. There are plenty of Chinese officials that have literally said you can come into the country and go to Xinjiang and look at it, and it's been denied or it's been moved on. Again, like these are reports that exist.
Definition. One second. Definition of genocide. I can't fucking find it.
Are you using the UN definition from 1972? Just the most current one?
The one on the United Nations website.
Yeah, that should be the 1972.
Okay, so for the purposes of this statute, hang on, I should put this on the screen for everyone, shouldn't I? Sorry. Will you accept my word that I'm going to reword this so I don't have to share the screen with you? Because that's technological nonsense. Okay. For the purpose of this statute, crime against humanity means any of the following acts when committed as part of a widespread or systematic attack directed at any civilian population with knowledge of the attack. A. Murder. Okay. B. Extermination. C. Enslavement. That's not murder. D. Deportation or forcible transfer of population. E. Imprisonment or other severe deprivation of physical liberty in violation of fundamental rules of international law. E. Is definitely taking place. F. Is taking place, which is torture. G. Rape, sexual slavery, enforced prostitution, forced pregnancy, enforced sterilisation.
These are all things that could apply to like the prison system in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely.
These are things that could apply to Iraqi prisoners of war.
Absolutely true, yes. How does that change what's happening in Xinjiang?
It completely changes
No, it doesn't.
Because that means the definition is so incredibly broad that you could pretty much call genocide on anything.
No, you could. I'm sorry, enforced sterilisation is not happening everywhere.
Okay, well, torture is definitely happening to U.S. troops or to prisoners held in Guantanamo Bay in Cuba.
Yeah, and I would describe that as genocide, yes.
All right. So if the definition of genocide is so broad, then anything genocide.
Hang on. In terms of Guantanamo Bay, is that against an ethnical group?
It's the only people that are there are Muslims and people from Islam.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's an ethnicity, does it? You get Muslims of different ethnicities. But either way, it's a crime against humanity. I think we can all agree on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So is that a genocide?
So you're okay if the Chinese government are just doing crimes against humanity, even if it doesn't reach this level of genocide?
If we're going to define what China is doing, I would 100% say that they are doing crimes against humanity to a certain extent. Yeah.
And you're okay with that?
Sure. But I wouldn't extend that notion to genocide because genocide usually refers to humanity.
Mal, I don't know how more disgusting it gets. You're okay with it as long as it's just crimes against humanity. Well, on what basis? On what basis?
I'm not saying I'm okay with it. Can you please shut the fuck up and stop assuming that I'm okay with it?
I literally just said, "Are you okay with that?" And you said yes.
No, I said I'm okay with the definition. That doesn't mean I'm okay with genocide. You ridiculous human being.
No.
Stop jumping the gun.
I said they're doing crimes against humanity, which you agreed with. Yeah.
Of course.
I then asked, are you okay with that?
It's a common thing. This is such a fucking ridiculous.
But I then asked, are you okay with that? And you said yes.
Incredibly broad. I'm not saying I'm actually okay with it. I'm accepting the definition that you are ascribing me, obviously, because we're talking about definitional terms. Again, you can maul about this all you want. We're talking about definitional terms. So of course, I'm going to say, okay, why in the fuck would I say no to you? You're being ridiculous.
Okay. There is enforced sterilisation taking place. That's undoubtedly
Do you have
the
evidence
case.
of that?
Yeah, the CIA told me. Moving on.
Well, I have a source that pretty much just proves that all of that is happening.
By all means, please send me that. I'm sure that's fascinating. Persecution against an identifiable group, that's certainly taking place. Collectively on a political, racial, national, ethnic basis.
I mean,
okay.
There's not a crime of apartheid. Like, how many of these? Okay, so let me ask.
There
you
is
this. How many of these do you need to fit your definition for something to actually be happening? Just one of them? Or all of them?
For the purposes, means any of the following acts. You just say any of the following acts.
That means, okay. So by this definition, that means genocide is happening everywhere, and then genocide is bad. And so that means
No, it doesn't. Hang on, how does it... Hang on, whoa. Where are these other places, other things taking place everywhere? What do you mean?
Well,
where is there...
In almost every single major country with an industrial prison complex, people are getting murdered for various different reasons. A lot of them has to do with marginalization, ethnicity. Entire groups have been exterminated over time.
Well, this is by state actors, so if a person kills...
Enslavement is currently happening in the state of Libya because of the result of the United States and the bombing and the civil wars.
Yeah.
The deportation and forcible transfer of population has been happening at the U.S.-Mexico border and in Canada for over 150 years.
Okay, but that's genocides then, yeah.
Literally call anything genocide.
No, you couldn't call anything genocide. You've named several instances there that do meet the criteria, and those I'm happy to accept are genocides. But that doesn't mean everywhere's a genocide. No, it doesn't mean everything's genocide. Why are you trying to obfuscate this bullshit? This is so weird.
No, it's not.
Everything is genocide, which puts a very different spin on that fucking song from the Lego
broad
movie.
brush stroke definition, everything is genocide, basically.
No, it doesn't
because
mean that.
All of these things are happening in various different states and various different places, so yeah.
Okay, but on this basis, China is admitting itself it's doing genocide then? Because China has signed up to this definition.
I mean, maybe. We'll see. I mean, until we have UN investigations to prove otherwise, after they've opened up the country, which they've wanted to do all summer, but countries do not want to take that up. I mean, sure. Again, I have said my position several times. You guys are like tilted little children over this. If we find out that every single thing that has been officially confirmed and there are bodies being industrially murdered in China, I will 100% reverse my position and change.
Well, first off, you've added the word industrial there, which is ridiculous because then that rules out virtually every genocide.
That's the only.
No, it isn't.
I mean, there are people. Okay.
No, it isn't.
Okay,
the Armenian genocide wasn't industrial.
Let me ask you this.
Go on.
So there are people on TikTok.
Okay, big stuff.
And there are people on various social media sites that are claiming that 6 million Uyghurs have been killed. There are people that are claiming that more Uyghur Muslims have been killed in the Holocaust. Do you think that's true?
Well, obviously not, because there are only like 12 million of them to begin with.
Right. So if this
I think we'd notice if 50% went missing,
So if this claim is completely and ridiculously false, do you think any of these claims that have been kind of falsified have pushed
hang on a
the
minute.
idea?
Are you asking me whether evidence provided by TikTok people should be taken into account? Are you genuinely asking me that? Because that might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
That's not what I was asking you, actually.
You said people on TikTok were saying 6 million had been killed. Well, I don't fucking care. It's some prick on TikTok.
Bringing up a point that many people have cited and that many people have cited as the narrative that have started a lot of this conversation about Xinjiang. I have met a lot of people, and I've heard that a lot of people, unfortunately, have heard about this entire situation due to the spread of information all throughout social media. I was just using this as an example. I'm not saying that I believe in TikTok conspiracy theories, and I don't think you believe in TikTok conspiracy theories, because I know you are more intelligent than that. You understand that, right?
Well, exactly,
so I'm using this, I'm basically using this as a bridge. I'm using this as a bridge to understand your framework, to understand how absurd that some of this stuff is getting.
But
I'm not trying to say that that's what you believe in.
But I don't. Unless the UN are citing TikTok people, I don't see how that's relevant.
What I'm saying.
No, I know you're not. I know you're not. I'm saying, unless that's the case, I don't
I
see
don't
the
think
point.
that's the case.
I don't see the
don't
point in you
think that's
bringing
the
it up.
case.
Then they're not
The
relevant
reason
to
why I'm
anything.
bringing it up is because this is how absurd this whole conversation overall about Xinjiang has been
On
getting over the
TikTok,
years.
I don't give a
It's not
fuck
even
what the
just
conversation on
it's
TikTok
not even
is.
just TikTok. It's not even just TikTok. It is social media in general. The problem is like, okay, so there was several videos that were posted on Twitter that came out of a Taiwanese BDSM dungeon, and people were passing around as Xinjiang torture, and that's been declassified.
That sounds
There are all
hot.
kinds of shit that comes out of the internet that's been declassified. So how do you know what's actually real and what's actually fake? That's the question that I'm asking you. I'm not saying whether you believe
One
in
of
it
the
or whether you
things,
don't believe in it.
one of the ways
I'm
I
saying that this is-
delineate is if it's on TikTok or not.
I'm not saying whether it's on TikTok. Okay, can we drop the TikTok part? I wasn't using that to use this as a talking point to prove you or me correct here. I'm
Okay.
just saying that there is a large amount of there's a large amount of disinformation that is coming out from both from random social media sites. There's lots of disinformation coming out of the U.S. State Department, and of course, there's Chinese propaganda that's being pushed through. I don't deny that China doesn't have their own propaganda system. If you think that I don't believe in any of these things, you're absolutely ridiculously silly, because I do acknowledge the fact that China has propaganda, and it's absolutely fucking a huge deal.
Right. So, oh God. So, but you accept that there is Chinese propaganda at least. So that's
Of course, yeah, of course. I would never
something, I guess.
deny that.
Okay.
But I feel like a lot of Americans are more willing to believe American propaganda than actually look into the skepticism of the things that are happening in China. That's usually been my solid take about the propaganda thing.
At the very least, you can use, say, the internet to look things up in a way like we just did with the UN definition. You can't do that in China.
But the UN definition is incredibly broad, though. That's the issue that I have with that UN definition. Is it's so
I was just bringing it up as an example
literally
that you saw me do an internet search. That's the point. I wasn't bringing it back to that. I'm just saying
no,
you
that's
can
fair.
use the internet to research stuff and to look for. Look, I mean, there's stuff I was looking at earlier about them destroying mosques, for instance. There have been dozens and dozens of mosques bulldozed by the Chinese state in Xinjiang. That, I would argue, is an act, again, of religious genocide taking place there. They're literally...
So now it's a religious genocide. So what's the definition of a religious genocide? See, now you're moving the definition again.
No, I'm not. Again, I'll go back to the UN definition. It mentions religious groupings
No, you mentioned
specifically.
religious genocide, so you should probably Google the definition of religious genocide. So I guess that's what the working definition is we're using.
Crimes against humanity, hang on. Where's the exact definition? Against a there's a thing where it says against religious. Hang on, Rome Statute. Is that what I'm looking for? There's a list of things where it says like the.
Most of the Bellingcat stuff that talked about the mosques was actually debunked. Would you like me to go over that?
I don't know what you're referring to.
Most of those mosques that were claimed to have been destroyed were actually just moved to different locations because they were sitting on unstable ground. Do you want to talk about that? It's not religious genocide.
Hang on, I'm looking for the thing first. 1 second.
Okay, we can talk about this, but you're actually wrong, by the way. So,
Oh, I can't fucking find it. Anyway, religious is one of the terms they use to describe
Well,
the
it's
thing.
not, because the big claim to the religious genocide was mosques being destroyed, and almost none of those mosques were destroyed.
Well, no, not just that. They're being re-educated. They're being taught.
How are they being re-educated? Do you know the programs that they're being talked to? Do you have sources for that?
Okay, Mel, you can do sea lining as much as you fucking like.
I'm
that's
not
fine.
sea lining.
You are
If you're
precisely
If you're
doing
going to
that.
make all these claims and you're going to say them, then you should be able to look them up and verify them, and we can have a discussion about it. Again, it's the same thing when I talk about history. If you claim to know so much about your hypothetical about China and North Korea's relationship, then you should be able to provide me evidence. This is the problem. All these people always come to me with these hypotheticals and ideas, but almost no one can provide me any sort of evidence or any sort of historical background to match any of the things that they're talking about, and it's incredibly disappointing.
Here we go. Sorry, right. In the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part.
The definition of religious genocide. I don't care about that. Do you know anything about the mosques?
Hang on, 1 second.
In
1 second. In whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. There we go. So religious genocide is a part of that. Yes.
Cool. Is there proof that it's happening?
Yeah, the CIA told me all about it. I got it straight from Henry Kissinger.
I mean, Henry Kissinger needs to be, hopefully, not.
I was joking.
Age.
Henry Kissinger needs to die. Yes.
He's still alive, which is amazing. He's like 99 years old.
Which goes to show you that only the good die young. Anyway,
I cannot wait for this.
yeah. Anyway, so yes. You've said before you're a Marxist-Leninist, right?
But that has no bearing to my opinion on China.
I would hazard a guess that it does. But
no, it has absolutely zero bearing. I mean, my idea of calling myself a communist has no material connection to China.
Well, not just a communist, because there are lots of different types of communist.
Right.
You have...
No, there isn't. You're just a communist or you're not. What do you mean, different kinds of communists?
Of course there are.
Definition of communist?
There are like anarcho-communists, there are Marxist-Leninist Maoists, there are weird Shining Path people. There are different tendencies within communism.
Yeah, but we're pretty much all communists. Like, we all believe in the same core principles, regardless of whether you look at view tendencies.
No, but that's
we're different. If you believe
it does
in the
mean
core
you're different. Of
of
course it does.
You're a communist.
No, exactly. Yeah, no, I'm saying you can all use the word communist, but communist is more of an umbrella term for a lot of different movements.
It's not an umbrella term. It's a core It's a core belief system that gets us to socialism.
Does it? Unfortunately, I'd love to believe that were true.
The shining path that it's okay. So the principles of communism are all the same. It's the methodology that is different.
Yeah, exactly. And so some people.
So I would call them lines. My lines, when I talk about communism, match almost nothing that has to do with what is going on in China. Matches almost nothing that is historically helping China. All the things that I sternly believe in are all about the material conditions of the United States. So no, I'm not a China simp.
Okay, well, I'll just ask you the question: is China a communist or socialist state?
That's not my decision to make because I don't live in China and I'm not Chinese. I'm not in the Chinese Communist Party. That kind of argument over which country is socialist and not socialist is a complete fucking waste of time. And anyone having those conversations on the internet or in real life are not actually socialists or leftists. It's pointless.
Hang on. How does having a conversation, even if it's a completely pointless conversation about cottage cheese,
material conditions of any single person?
No, but that doesn't mean
whether you. I don't.
No, but you don't have to. Not every conversation has to have any point to it. The point is,
you can learn from the things that China does, but like it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Like, who cares if whether China is a socialist or not? Like, how does that conversation advance anybody?
Well, it does because if you want to learn how to do a communisms, then surely you would need to look at countries that have done that to some extent in the past and try and learn their lessons and things.
Right. But
so if China were a socialist state now, you could in some way copy some of their tactics. Yeah. So I think it is reasonably important to decide these things. That's what you want to do with
almost every single political ideology. But the fact of the matter is
well,
you didn't ask me about that. No. You asked me.
Yeah.
No. You asked me.
Yeah.
Do I think China is socialist? And I don't fucking care about that conversation because it does not do anything for me materially in the United States. I just
it's not.
Why do I need to have that conversation?
Let's just be honest.
That conversation is literally fucking pointless.
You know it's capitalist. You know it is.
You're just saying that because that's what you want. You want me to say, and that's what you want to hear.
No, that's what I believe, and that's what I know
you.
I do not care. That's what I know you believe too.
I do not care. You can say China's capitalist all you want. Don't care. You could be a dangist and say China's socialist and say it's socialist. Don't fucking care. This conversation is literally pointless. It does not matter. It is literally. You are actually sea lining. Like I'm
genuinely not. I asked you one question. How is that sea? I asked you one question.
Because this is the thing that everyone says to every single person that remotely talks about China.
Okay,
there's literally no point.
Is China democratic?
Who cares? Who fucking cares?
I care.
I'm a communist in the United States.
Teach me.
I do not fucking care.
Mal, teach me. Care. I'm a silly boy on the internet. I need education. Is China democratic?
I do not care about this conversation. It does not do anything for us in the United States. Or the imperial core. Why does it matter whether China's democratic?
Is America democratic?
Who cares? What are you going to do about it? What if they're not democratic? What
am I going to do about it? That sounds like a weird threat. I'm not going to do anything. I'm asking you a question.
This is just a pointless conversation. Like, what do you get out of knowing that China's a capitalist or a socialist country? What kind of gotcha? Like, what do you get?
It's not a gotcha. I'm asking you a question. Okay, what is democracy then?
Democracy is when people have the 100% ability to vote and participate in the ideas that they want to believe in as a collective. That's just what democracy is.
Okay, so on that basis, would you describe America as a democracy?
America is not a democracy. America is a liberal democracy.
Is China a democracy?
Again, I do not fucking care. Like, why does it matter?
What
you can
does
talk
it
about
matter?
America all you want.
What does it matter about America then? You answered for America. Why
Because
would you
I
not?
live in America and I care about America not being a liberal democracy. I don't really care what China fucking does. If China wants to be like a state capitalist country,
You clearly
whatever.
don't. You clearly don't care what they do because you're okay with them being capitalist and being genocidal. Yeah.
I literally can't do anything to affect China, but I can affect what happens in the United States and the United States foreign policy regarding China.
Okay. What should America's foreign policy toward China be?
I think I think totally 100% America's foreign policy needs to be some kind of international intervention, but I don't know to the extent that should happen.
International intervention?
Right.
In what? In military intervention or?
No, diplomatic, of course. Like, obviously, the international community should hold other countries and nations accountable. Like, that's just the obvious answer.
Okay, but hold them accountable for what?
Whatever's going on, I don't know.
So you're literally just going to do the, I don't know what's happening. Could be anything.
Utilize the UN. Like, it's the obvious answer. Just fucking utilize the UN. It's, like, real simple, dude.
Yeah, but do you think that with the UN being, and I'm going to be generous here and
Use
say,
the UN. Use the ICC. It's real simple.
the UN is a bag of dog shit that's not even worth setting on fire. What difference would it make if the UN
So we use
did
the
a thing?
UN for everything else, but we're not going to use the UN for China.
I wouldn't use the UN.
Doing a crime or not.
I wouldn't trust the UN to tie my fucking shoelaces for me. They're useless.
Like this is obviously some yellow peril shit. Like
How is it yellow peril in remotely?
because I'm literally giving you the option to use the UN, and you're being like, well, the UN's kind of sketchy. I'm like, so what do you want?
No,
then?
no, the
If you
UN's
don't
not
want the
kind
UN
of
If you don't
sketchy.
want the UN to do anything, then
No,
what do
the
you want
international.
the UN to do?
Well, something
China
like the
needs to be-
International Criminal
okay,
Court
look,
would be
look,
good.
China
Maybe.
needs to be okay. Here's my line. Do you want to know my line about China? So you can stop being ridiculous.
I've
My line
wanted
about
nothing
China
more
is
in my
this.
life.
No, this is always my line. China needs to be held accountable to the same standard as every other country in the world, and the United Nations is that standard. So if you disagree that if you say, when I say, hey, tell the UN to hold China accountable, and then your reaction is, well, the UN's kind of shitty and shady, and I don't know if I believe them, then what else am I supposed to believe? Then
I'm
what
not
is
saying
your
I don't
solution?
believe them. I'm not saying I don't believe them. And frankly, having any international observers in Xinjiang is going to be better than having none. That's fine. I'm just saying the UN is generally shit, and asking them to try and hold China accountable is ridiculous given the fact that they're as toothless as a 90-year-old. Like, they're useless. They can't do anything. The best they could do is a peacekeeper in Africa, and those peacekeepers just end up fucking raping everyone. They're shit.
Okay, so then what's your solution then? If the UN is so bad and the only solution is the UN, then what is your fucking solution?
Kill every person on the planet.
There.
It's the only answer. There's no more genocide with no more people.
So this is the China conversation in a nutshell. I give you the ultimate solution, which is utilize the UN, but then everyone's counter-argument is the UN is dog shit. So then it's like, what's the point?
That's not. But you know that's not a solution because you know the UN can't do anything. Even if the UN go in there and find Auschwitz 2.0.
If the UN is able to hold the biggest nation, like one of the biggest nations of the world, accountable, then that's a win for internationalism. That's a win for everybody. But you don't want to know that answer.
It would be.
It would be. Give a fuck.
That would be super awesome. That would be super awesome. But
I gave you a simple fucking solution.
It's not a solution.
The UN is the world standard, and you fought back over it.
It's not a solution.
Your answer was just, oh well. The UN shit, and it's like, okay, so then if we can't
what can the UN do?
Powerful bodies to hold China accountable, then you have nothing. You
but that's true. Okay, right. Okay, has the UN been able to successfully stop the genocide of the Palestinians?
I'm going to ask you something.
No. Have the UN? The UN have released several resolutions condemning the actions of the Israeli government in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Have they been able to do a fucking damn thing to stop it?
No.
So why would China be different?
What does that have to do with China, though?
But why would China be different? China's more powerful than Israel. How would they be able to stop them?
How is China any more powerful than Israel?
It has a massive army. Massive army. That alone, it's got nuclear weapons just like Israel. It's richer than
We
Israel.
don't actually know how many nuclear weapons that Israel has, by the way. That's actually
Well, in order to meet the stockpile, in order to meet the stockpile that China has, all of Israel would have to be a nuclear silo.
How many nuclear weapons China has, and the United States has 20 times.
Exactly,
the
yeah.
amount of China
No.
has.
Yeah, fuck nuclear weapons. They're horrible. My point is, in order for Israel to have even the same number as China, it would have to be one massive nuclear bunker. The entire fucking country.
So I want to ask you something. Okay, so given your response to the UN and China, because you just don't want to deal with that, what is your solution
the
to
UN
ICE?
could go in there, but if the UN... Okay, well, can I just make a point? If they went in there and found Auschwitz 2.0, what could they do to stop it?
I mean, if it's Auschwitz 2.0, then obviously there's going to be a military intervention because we're going to be left with no choice.
You think America's going to go to war to defend Muslims?
100%.
Oh, you're insane. You're insane.
They like to defend good Muslims.
How are these good Muslims? They've been doing fucking bus bombings and stuff.
Hey, do you remember Bosnia and like Serbia and Herzegovina? Those were the good Muslims.
Are you taking Serbia's side?
I think Serbia is a horrendous country, but essentially that's what America did. America still did the same thing.
I wasn't expecting Serbia standing tonight.
America still grappled with that decision. I'm not on the side of Milosevic. He's a fucking war criminal and I hate him. But the issue is America still has to grapple with that decision.
America is not going to go to war with a nuclear-armed state. That's ridiculous.
They're going to, if they could. I mean, the United States Marine Corps has completely refitted their entire military to fight in the South China Sea. How is that not war drums?
Ask yourself.
What evidence can you provide to say that they're just do you think the Marine Corps is just doing that for fun?
Ask yourself, Mel, why is it that America can't go to war with China? You said they would if they could, but why can't they? What's stopping them?
The number one thing that would prevent the Americans from going to war with China is because it would be a slugfest, pure and simple.
What, not nuclear exchange?
They would lose geopolitical power. If they lose enough, that would be worthless for them. It has nothing to do with Korea. It has nothing to do with the genocide in Xinjiang province. It's literally because America cannot wage a war against China economically or militarily because it would not be feasible for them.
Okay, so on that basis then, how are they going to go in and stop the hypothetical? I know you don't like hypotheticals, but if the UN found Auschwitz 2.0 and wanted to go in and do something, America cannot do something.
Go around. They're probably not. They're probably going to go through Russia or some kind of proxy country, but it's never. It might
Russia.
Not even be Korea.
You think Russia's going to host American fucking service personnel to invade China?
I don't know that. I'm not saying it might. It's a possibility. I'm not trying to say again. Like these hypotheticals are silly because I don't even have a good answer for them.
No, because there isn't an answer to it, because it's not going to fucking happen.
Why are you so obsessed with why are you so obsessed with Auschwitz and the Holocaust? This is like a really weird argument that you're using.
Because it's like the byword for genocide.
It's actually not. It's actually not though. It's like really cringe. There's all kinds of other like conflicts that are equitable to this. Like we could use Rwanda. Rwanda's a perfect example.
No. I said byword. I didn't say it was a perfect analogy. I said it was a byword. So when you say Auschwitz, people think genocide.
I want to ask you a question. I've been trying to ask you a question for the entire time, but you haven't let me talk because you keep screaming Auschwitz at me, and it's really fucking.
I do. All I've done.
You guys are obsessed with talking about Auschwitz and the Holocaust.
Can I get some Auschwitzes in the chat, please, people?
So let me ask you a question. I would love to ask you a question.
Go for it.
Okay, so in your hypothetical worldview of doing literally nothing because you have no fucking solutions for anything, what would you do about ICE?
What would I do about ICE? The problem I have with my solution to ICE is that terms of service stop me from really describing what I'd like to happen to ICE.
Okay, well, don't use the terms of service then.
How would one go about describing the kind of direct action I would seek without?
Okay, so you don't have a solution again.
No, I do have a solution. But again,
I
don't want to get my channel shut down just so I can.
Call me a Holocaust denier by basically talking about Auschwitz over and over again. It's pretty fucked up, actually.
No, I called you a genocide denier. I don't for a second claim that you deny the Holocaust.
Though, as a comparison, so you're basically trying to smear me as I don't even think that happened. Which I do think
I'm doing. It's a shorthand, isn't it? It's a. Do you know what the word byword means? Literally, it's like the thing that you can replace it.
Is there an international solution? Can the UN intervene in the genocide that's happening on the U.S. border? Would you allow the UN Security Council to investigate that?
I'd love them to. I'd love them to go in there and take the fucking head of ICE and put him in the Hague. Yes, but it's not going to happen.
Why isn't the UN investigating the United States?
Because the UN is shit. I just said
Oh, okay.
they've passed resolution
So
after
the UN is
resolution
shit. So the
condemning
UN is so
Israel,
worthless.
and it hasn't saved a
So the
single
UN
Palestinian
so
life.
If the UN is so worthless, then you have no solution. So it doesn't matter whether there's a genocide happening or
No,
not.
it does
There's
matter.
No solution.
It does matter. Just because I don't have a solution doesn't mean it doesn't matter. Obviously, that's not how life works, is it? There are some things outside of our control. That's true. That doesn't mean we can't have an opinion on it.
Right, but it just seems kind of weird to have an opinion on something when we literally can't do anything about it, and the only solution is the UN, but y'all just don't like.
It's not. UN isn't the solution
because you keep calling it shit. So it looks like
well,
you
it is
just
shit.
don't have a leg to
Like I say,
stand on.
of all the resolutions, and it's passed about 10 or something against Israel. How many Palestinian
Why do
lives
you
have
keep
been
talking
saved?
about Israel and Palestine and Auschwitz? This is so weird. Use Rwanda. There's so many other. There's better examples to this.
No. My point is, with Israel, they've passed resolutions. Dozens, well, lots of them, about 10 of them,
Can
I
you
believe.
bring up the resolutions? Can you tell me what they were?
Are you denying they're existing? Come on.
No, I'm asking. No, I'm asking you.
Oh, okay, and fuck's sake, UN Israel resolution. Right, UN Israel resolution.
You just said they passed 10 of them, so like, I mean, that's
They've passed.
lot.
They've passed. Yeah, list of UN resolutions against Israel. Actually, there's way more. Fuck me, there are dozens and dozens of them. Hang on, I'll put that on the screen for everyone. I was
The
completely
UN
wrong.
the
Going
UN
back.
is this fucking worthless. Do you think the UN should be an Do you think the UN should be the standard that we should judge all nations?
Well, I don't. Well, I like the idea of what the UN is supposed to be, but it's toothless.
I mean, so do I.
It's toothless. It can't do anything.
So
Look,
all these things.
look
have
at
to do
this
with the
resolution.
Suez crisis. That has nothing to do with genocide.
Right,
That's the Suez crisis.
I'm scrolling through them now. There's got to be 100.
Cyanide is not genocide.
There's got to be 100 fucking UN resolutions.
Right. Not all of these have to do with genocide. A lot of them just have to do with the conflicts that have happened in Israel.
No. But the point. Okay, this one then, right? Expressing shock over the killing of Palestinian civilians in Nahalin, 20th of April 1988. How many Palestinians did any of these fucking things save? How many Palestinian lives have been saved by this? None.
I mean, UN. Everyone knows that UN resolutions are teethless. Like that's not.
Exactly.
something-
So
if
all
that's
they'll
an
do,
argument-
they'll go into
Okay, but like,
they'll go into Xinjiang. They'll find whatever they find. They release a resolution slapping China on the wrist, and China goes, "I don't fucking care," and carries on.
so what about sanctions? How do you feel about sanctions?
Sanctions I have an issue with because they often don't actually hurt the people they're supposed to hurt. It's often poor
sanctions end up
people.
hurting the people more than they hurt anything else.
Exactly, yeah. That's what I mean. Like it's
Okay,
difficult
so
to
let me
have
ask you this.
properly
So do you want
targeted
sanctions
sanctions.
on China? I'm going to ask you: do you want sanctions on China? Yes or no?
I want sanctions on Xi Jinping and the Central Committee of the Communist Party. Yes.
Okay, but that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt Chinese citizens that live here. You know that, right?
How?
Because if it targets the central government, they're going to put like restrictions on, things that are happening in the United States. We see this all the time with sanctions. Whenever
Very
sanctions
possibly,
are
yeah.
imposed on a government, like they can impose sanctions on the Communist Party, but that is going to prevent Chinese folks from like going back to China.
Possibly so. Yeah. That's.
Do you think that's okay?
It's not okay, but what part of any of this is okay?
I mean, absolutely none of it. But no one here seems to have any sort of solutions other than just get angry at me because I don't think the situation is even like possibly even. Like,
Well, no, but this is the point. Like,
fathomably.
Mal, you expect me to feel sympathy, and I do to an extent, for Chinese
I don't
people
expect
not able
anyone
to
feel
travel
any sort of
back to
sympathy at all.
China.
I mean, obviously your chat doesn't like me, so it doesn't really fucking matter. Everyone's just going to smear me on the internet as a genocide denier. And you know what's really funny about this? It's only a very specific group of leftists that have this opinion of me. It's
White
not
people?
everyone. It's a very specific group of leftists that just dislikes this idea that I don't want like large scale intervention.
Go on, say it.
So
then. Who?
it's literally just the sock dems and a bunch of anarchists. It's 100% true.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with the white people thing again.
No, it's
Okay.
literally just no. Why would I assume it's white people? Why are you assuming that I'm being racist? This is ridiculous.
Because you literally said at the start that it's mostly white people doing it. You did say that at the
No,
start.
I never said that.
Also, can you have my title right?
I'm being called a racist by
I'm
your
a
chat,
radical.
which is not true because you
Mal.
can't be racist to white folks. But
Mal,
all right, this is
Mal,
a good conversation.
Can you correct the record? I'm actually a radlib.
No,
please-
I would never call you a rad lib.
Please,
That's ridiculous. That
please
word
call
is
me by
silly.
my correct title. I am a radical centrist, Bidenist.
No, I don't think anyone's a rad lib. I think rad lib is a dumb word.
It is dumb. It is
Again,
dumb.
I think all these words and titles are fucking meaningless.
Yeah, they are.
Like they don't
basically.
actually, like, again, this is the issue, is like none of these things actually affect material conditions within the United States. This is all just like fucking Cold War posturing, and it all is just kind of
No,
really
well, surely
silly.
no. Public
And like the
discussion
thing
does.
is like I don't understand like why you are being incredibly bad faith, and also why are you letting your chat call me a racist when that's completely untrue?
I can't stop them calling you whatever. They call me fucking all sorts. That's
Oh,
the
well,
internet.
you seem to really like this, so it's pretty
No,
fun stuff.
no, don't call. I don't think Mel is a racist. Don't call her racist.
Well, you
but I
this is the
can't
first
stop
time,
them.
you know, I mean, I'm watching it, so,
I can't
you
stop
know.
them saying whatever, though, can I?
I mean, yeah, you could, but you know,
How?
you can you can tell them to actually be charitable and not say things that are pretty fucking disgusting.
I just
because
said.
I'm
I
watching
just.
the chat.
Yeah, don't do genocide denial. It's bad. Ooh,
Oh, so it's okay for people to say racist refugees to me because I'm doing a genocide denial when I'm just being skeptical. which
Because
is
you
really
are
what it
doing a
is, it's just
genocide denial.
skepticism. It's just skepticism. So skepticism of not wanting countries to war each other over incredibly ridiculous claims that we don't have any sort of confirmation is absolute denialism. It results in people being cruel to me for no reason. It's pretty fucked up, actually.
No, Mel, right. You are doing genocide denial. Then pointing
I'm
out
not
you're doing genocide denial
Actually, no, I'm not.
is
There
just
nothing that I have
accurate.
possibly said as doing genocide denial. You guys have declared me doing genocide denial, but I'm actually not.
Yeah, because when the sun rises in the morning, I say, "Oh, look, it's the sun." It's obvious as in plain in front of my fucking face.
Denial. This is incredibly 100% bad faith. I mean, it's fine.
not
if you
bad
want to call
faith.
me a genocide denier, you can, but I know that I'm not
And
denying genocide,
will.
so it's fine.
Yeah, I will, because it's what's happening.
Well, it's not. That's actually not what's happening. That doesn't mean I'm denying genocide.
Anyway, don't call Mel a racist. She's just a genocide denier, okay?
Oh, okay. So that's what it boils down to, right? So it's okay for people to not insult me in that way, but it's okay for people to insult me in the other way because that's acceptable for you and your worldview and your framework. That seems pretty.
No.
It's.
This is an editorial stance I've taken for the entirety of my channel. If people say true things in the chat, I don't ban them for it.
Oh, but this is not actually a true thing because I'm not a genocide denial. This entire political community is just a sign that because I have a conflicting viewpoint. That is literally what this is boiling down to. This is 100% bad faith. This has nothing to do with me denying genocide. It's just because I have a different worldview than other people. So obviously I must be the most despicable thing in the entire time.
No. It doesn't make you the most despicable thing in the entire time. No.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. No. You could be doing worse. But it's still bad,
So,
just because it's not the worst thing ever.
I legitimately just have skepticism of really bad data. That is the entire thing. Like, I have skepticism of all kinds of bad data, regardless of whether it comes from China, and also even if it comes from the United States State Department.
Okay.
I just don't like
Okay, so
data.
when someone says they've got skepticism as to whether it's a genocide at the U.S. border, is that
I never
okay?
said it was. I never said it was skepticism of genocide on the U.S. border. Stop moving the goalpost. I
No.
legitimately
I'm
just have
saying
skepticism of the United States.
if
There is
someone,
no skepticism of what's going on the border.
I'm saying
No
if
one is
someone does,
denying that.
liberals.
No one in your political, political circle is denying that.
No,
Your
absolutely.
political circle
But
is going to
liberals
paint
will
me this
deny
way,
that.
So
Liberals will say that's not a genocide taking place there. They're skeptical of your claims. Is that okay? Or are they doing genocide denial?
Well, that's not even a situation that's happening, so I don't even know why the fuck you'd bring that up.
Liberals. Well, hang on. You think all liberals accept that what ICE are doing is genocide?
Why do you assume that I would assume all liberals of that? It's a ridiculous argument.
Because you just fucking said it. You said that wasn't happening, and I'm saying it is happening. Liberals do think that.
It wasn't happening. I said I'm very skeptical of the data that is happening, and until we have 100% like immovable proof that this is happening, then we can go forward. But you are deciding to conflate that with genocide denial, which is not what I'm doing. I'm not a genocide denialist.
Mel, are you a
keep
psyop?
Saying this to your chat, keep on pushing this idea because apparently it's the only thing that you guys have against me, which I think is fine. Which I think is really interesting because almost every single one of you actually liked a lot of my political takes until I started to espouse skepticism on China, and then that's when it all began. I know that this happened because I watched it. You guys are all incredibly bad faith and all incredibly disingenuous, and you're just doing this, and it's fine. Like, if you want to keep calling me a genocide denialist, go ahead. It doesn't bother me. I don't really give a fuck because it's a meaningless fucking phrase.
You do seem like quite
true.
You do seem like you quite give a fuck about that, though. You do seem rather peeved by that.
It's only you guys who think that. I actually know. So it's fine.
Matt, are you a psyop sent from the future to like make my brain explode?
I'm a living, breathing human being. I'm not very exciting.
You are. Well, you've gotten me excited, I have to say. Although that sounded creepy. Didn't mean that.
You know, I've been called a psyop, a China bot. Like, what else do you guys want to think of me? I mean, like I said, I'm not a genocide denial. So I mean, you know. I'm just
Okay.
skeptical of stuff that's been happening.
Okay, well that's okay, well we'll leave it on that note. Mel claims she is not a genocide denier. I disagree.
Oh, all right. Well, I mean, that's the narrative, you know. Like I said, like this is a conversation that tends to evolve every single time I have this conversation because I'm just highly skeptical of data coming from people like the State Department, the CIA, Andrew Zenny. But like, that's it. Like, it's not
Okay,
that I
well,
don't necessarily think that these claims couldn't happen. Again, my line will be this. I will leave on this. So let me say this. I have said this at the end of every single stream when anyone has ever questioned my political motivations or the things that I believe in, and I will say it again. If it turns out that all of these claims that have been brought over the last couple years are 100% true with immovable proof by the ICC and the UN Security Council reviews that are going to hopefully happen this summer when China hopefully opens it up to let everyone know what's going on and we have immeasurable proof, I will 100% change my position and I will go 100% against China and I will condemn every single thing that is happening. But until that day, I mean, I'm just going to be skeptical. Does that mean I'm denying genocide? No, it just means I'm just going to be skeptical and always look at new information. That's what this boils down to. It is you guys that have prescribed the idea that I'm a genocide denier because for some reason, just being skeptical of something just automatically means genocide denial. Now, you could be skeptical about anything. I mean, the gotcha argument.
You can. You can be skeptical about Rwanda or the Holocaust or Armenia.
Yeah, of course. But you want to paint me that way. I'm on your side. I'm a leftist. I'm not a white supremacist, so please do not paint me with white supremacist arguments. That's fucking ignorant, stupid, and ridiculous.
Okay,
So
well
again,
you can deny the genocide of the Boers then. That's not white supremacist because that was a genocide against white people. You could be skeptical about that.
That's not a genocide against white people. The Boers is not a genocide. You are just being ridiculous. Come on.
Hang on.
You're
Whoa.
horrendously bad.
They were killing. Hang on. No. They killed tens of thousands of Boers in the turn of the century in the Boer War. That did happen. Concentration camps were used. They displaced thousands. They burned villages. That was a genocide. That absolutely was.
I don't know what else you guys, what you fucking people want from me. If the UN and the ICC calls it a genocide, I'll switch my position and that's it. That's literally it.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Well,
there's nothing exciting about my position. You guys have been like hammering about this for months.
Will you come back up? Will you come back on if the UN do that investigation and call it a genocide? Will you come back on and reevaluate?
I will talk about it. And we can have this conversation. Yes.
Awesome. Good.
100%. I have said this so many times. This is why I get frustrated because you have decided, all of you as a collective group of all these sock dems and pseudo leftists and people.
Yeah, we had a
that don't
meeting.
Like communists.
We had a meeting
I know
about
you
it.
guys
Yeah.
have a meeting.
Yeah,
I know y'all are having meetings together.
Yeah, George Soros told me personally to say to call her a genocide denier.
Soros didn't say that. That's a little bit ridiculous.
He did.
But I will say this again.
Hello?
I am.
Hello?
No, I'm sorry. No, at the end of the day, my biggest worry is that we are entering a Cold War in some sort of way. And I don't like to use that phrase because it's never been accurate to describe what's been happening with China because I don't really feel like it's a Cold War. I definitely feel like it's an economic sort of a shift in geopolitics. And so something that I think is incredibly important to note is that because there is a economic shift in geopolitics in terms of economy and power, that there could be posturing and these things could be happening as a result, like the propaganda efforts from both sides, from the United States, from China, as a result of these sort of fledgling geopolitical and economic ties that are happening. Now, the problem is because we have claims, very serious claims, in fact, of these kinds of stuff happening in Xinjiang province, that I do think they need to be taken 100% seriously. And I'm 100% supportive of the UN and the ICC and the Security Councils hammering down and being like, hey, we should treat this equally. We should have unfeathered access to these facilities. We should have unfeathered access to the region.
The Security Council aren't going to do anything because China will just veto it, obviously.
It doesn't. Okay, you can say that all you want. I don't care.
Hang on, China's not going to vote. China's not going to vote for itself to be called a genocide.
Again, I do not care. what you think about this. I am laying out my position, regardless of how you feel about it or not. It does not matter.
That's hurtful. You've hurt me.
The point is this is what I want. This is what everybody should want. Everyone's position should be, if crimes against humanity that we deem the most extreme are happening in any sort of country, whether it's happening within the U.S. borders, whether it's happening in Canada, whether it's happening in Armenia, whether it's happening in Brazil, whether it's happening in the Philippines, or whether it's happening in Xinjiang province, I think the UN, the ICC, and the UN Security Council, regardless of who is sitting on that council, needs to investigate all these countries equally, send in observers that are non-biased to the region, and make sure that everything is happening as opposed, or you know what I mean? Like everything is happening as normal. Like there isn't actually crimes against humanity. If we find out that there are some of the most heinous crimes against humanity happening in these countries, there needs to be some kind of international response. I would prefer it to be it to be a diplomatic one, but ultimately, and this is true, and we all have to rectify this, ultimately, the standard is going to be the UN. So if the UN does an investigation and finds nothing, and if UN's the standard, then that's the story told. If the UN goes in and they find something and the UN is the standard, I will 100% flip my position, and we can have a healthy conversation about maybe what could we possibly do going forward. Now, materially in the United States, I don't think we can actually affect very much. I'm extremely anti-interventionist and anti-war, so my position will definitely not be one of a war hawk, but probably one of diplomatic action, but that is incredibly complicated, and I'm not equipped to have that conversation.
So we send China a strongly worded letter.
That's not really what I'm going for here.
Okay.
But yes, so I do 100% believe that the UN should always be the standard for how we determine whether or not countries are doing good and or bad things. Now, the issue is yes, I will concede the point that you are correct to a degree that the UN does have some issues. Like the UN has been really good at handling some countries and very ineffective at handling others.
That's so generous of you to say that the UN has some problems. Yeah.
Well, no, but everyone knows that though. Like this is like Kevin, this is the thing. Everyone knows that. So this is the thing that I want to drive is like everyone knows that the UN has issues, right? And I'm always skeptical of the UN as opposed to most people. But like we still have to use them as the international standard, you know? Like as much as I hate the UN, as much as I'm as skeptical as you, if they're the standard, they're the standard. And so they have to be the standard regardless going forward.
Cool.
And of course, like, again, if you want to argue what the standard of the UN should be, that is a completely separate conversation than the UN just going in and checking, right? The conversation of what the UN is supposed to equal in the world geopolitically, that is a completely different conversation. So, like, if you want, I can come back and we can talk about all of the individual UN statutes and how maybe we would want to change the UN. You know, maybe Dylan would want to have that conversation about like what can we do what could we do if we wanted to change the UN? Because again, that is a completely different conversation than what the UN needs to do now, which I 100% agree the UN should have unfettered access to Xinjiang province. That is what I honestly want. I want the UN and the IC to go in and fucking look at everything so we can get it all fucking confirmed and have all this shit known. Do you not want that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we can agree that that's what we want, right?
Cool.
That's where my skepticism comes.
Okay,
that is the only. Do you understand? Kind of my side here is like that is where my skepticism really is. Ultimately, it's just like I've seen some sources that are coming out of the United States like very much are not credible, but like China also has its own propaganda, so it's also very difficult to How about you? And here's the thing: it might not even be Chinese propaganda. It might even be Chinese truth. And so the solution, international community, ICC, UN, do the investigation, unfettered access, and whatever takes place, we go from there. That should always be the solution. And just being skeptical of something shouldn't be considered genocide denial. Like, literally, my entire position has always just been baby skepticism. That's just where I've been,
How about me and you go there and we'll sort it?
I mean, if you want to get tickets, we can go there. I'll go to Xinjiang with you.
I'll meet you in Urumqi next Tuesday.
All right.
Definitely.
I hope everyone understands that is ultimately like my position. It's the same thing with like UN, like the whole like intervention in Korea, You know, I don't want. Okay, do you know my position on unification? Can I say that like real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. So if anyone doesn't know my position on like, you know, North Korea and South Korea or the DPRK and the ROK, I think that both countries should meet at Panmunjom and have negotiations between both states without the influence of the United States, Japan, and China. I also believe that the United
But
States
China doesn't
should
have any power there, does it?
they still can bring people to the table because they could if they wanted to, regardless of whether you think that leverage exists or doesn't. Point is they still have some kind of influence. Now, the influence that they have, I don't know that because I don't live in the DPRK, so I'm not going to extend a massive amount of. I'm not going to extend the idea that yes, that's for sure they have influence because like I don't know, and neither do you. So again, for the sake of argument, it doesn't matter how much influence they have. My stance still remains the same. I do not want China or Russia or Vietnam or Korea or Japan or any other country to interfere in the peace and the unification process between both Koreas. I think both Koreas need to sit down as unilateral governments and decide what they want to do together. Simple as that. I think one of the first steps is the removal of U.S. troops from South Korea. I don't necessarily mean bases. I don't necessarily mean like certain systems. I do really think that the first step is just removing some of the threat because there is a lot of trauma and there is a lot of nervousness from having military exercises. So I think a good step would be, hey, let's end the war games in the South China Sea. China would have to do that as well. The Koreans.
Would China have to get rid of the man-made islands?
I don't know if they have to necessarily get rid of the man-made islands, but I don't know the story behind the man-made islands around Korea. I don't think they have man-made islands around Korea. They have man-made islands in the South China Sea.
Yeah.
None of them actually border Korea.
No. But in order to stop the military war games, essentially they've created artificial land.
No, they don't because they're not doing war games they're not doing war games in the Korean Strait. So it doesn't matter whether they have islands there. So that's a moot point. Again. Don't care about China. You keep pivoting to China. I don't fucking care about China. Stop bringing up China. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It does matter. It absolutely.
No, it doesn't.
Because if you want a demilitarization, or if you want a military step
fixated
back,
on China. I do not care. Again, China is
you clearly
not doing
do.
war game.
You clearly do care.
China is.
You clearly care rather a lot.
I care about Korea, so you need to shut the fuck up and stop conflating China with me talking about Korea every single time. Again, China is not doing war games in the Korean Strait.
No, but you've said they'd have to stop doing war games in the South China Sea. Part of that would have to involve China destroying
into that part of China.
Yeah, but the point is, China would have to destroy those man-made islands,
and is being done by the Japanese, coherent with the United States.
Because the Chinese government,
just because the South China Sea has the word China in it, doesn't mean China. Come on now.
Yes, it does, because China is trying to impose its imperialist hegemony over that region.
About Korea without you stop bringing up China. This is really fucking frustrating that you guys are obsessed to bring up China when I want to talk about
because
Korea.
you're doing China simping.
This is getting ridiculous.
It's embarrassing that Mel.
No, it's not embarrassing.
It
is.
It's
not embarrassing.
Because all I'm saying is they have to get rid of those man-made islands because they're trying to.
Just want to bring up China.
They're trying to enforce their will on the other nations of the South China Sea.
This has nothing to do with anything. This is a different conversation.
It isn't. China is integral to reunification of Korea.
In the South China Sea, bases are not war exercises in the South China Sea. America doesn't need to remove bases.
It is because those are artificial. That's not Chinese land. They built artificial.
I said America needs to remove troops. Again, you are moving the fucking goalpost to fucking China. Stop doing this. Just let me finish my fucking point about Korea. You are obsessed with bringing up China. It's fucking ridiculous. It's
Hang on,
so
is the person in the
weird
chat? China is nowhere near Korea. What?
Stop. Okay, can I finish this without you interrupting and bringing up China?
Okay, Mel.
China.
Mel, hurry the fuck up then, because you've been going on for like 10 minutes now. Come on.
I would love to finish this, but you keep bringing up China. And
hurry
I have to fucking move you away from this fucking pivot because it's ridiculous. I didn't bring up China. I said the South China Sea. That doesn't mean China. Do you not know geography, buddy? Like, it doesn't mean China is involved in everything because the South China Sea is there.
Okay, these are geographical names.
No,
Okay,
I moved on to a different
technically
point.
Technically, it's the Sea of Japan or the Strait of Korea, depending on who you ask. If I were to ask Koreans, it would be the Strait of Korea. If I were to ask Japanese folks, it would be the Sea of Japan.
Will you stop pivoting
Different
to
people
Japan?
Have different people have different regional names for whatever seas that are talked about.
Stop
Again, you brought up the
pivoting.
bases,
Stop
you
pivoting
brought
to
up the
Japan and
artificial
talk about
islands, and
Korea.
I didn't. No, you fucking brought up China. I'm not talking about fucking China, you nerd.
Nerd.
God
Okay,
damn,
dweeb.
Kev,
Hurry
like,
up.
fuck.
Talk about fucking Korea then, for God's sake.
I was trying to, but you can't. I just mentioned the South China Sea once, and you fucking went off
Hurry
on
the
bases, you dork.
Fucking talk about it
Jesus,
then.
Fuck. Well, no, you started it. You literally fucking pivoted, dude. God damn. Jesus, you guys are fucking China on the brain. It's ridiculous.
Okay, complete your thought about Korea so I can fucking end this bastard show.
Oh man, you're so fucking mad. You guys really just hate China. It's really funny. Maybe I should just talk about China for another half an hour. This is funny.
I'm not doing this show for another half an hour.
Off of China.
Fucking complete your thought about Korea.
No, this is funny. We should just talk about China because you just get so fucking tilted over the word China. I literally mentioned the word South China Sea just to refer to just
Mel,
a part of
you've
where
got to the top of the hour to complete your thing
out.
about fucking Korea, and then I'm ending the fucking call. So you've got 5 minutes.
I have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Can I talk about China for the last 5 minutes? Because it seems like
You
you're
can
pretty
talk about
tilted
my
over
fucking
China.
gooch for 5 minutes. I don't care.
All right. So basically, the only reunification goal I see for Korea is having pretty much all outside influence removed from the peninsula and just having both countries just simply do interparliamentary negotiations between both governments. That's all I want. That's a pretty simple fucking solution. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. I think having a bunch of countries decide how these countries should act or feel about certain negotiations is kind of silly. Like, I do think any country that wants to intervene in something like this should step away. Like, again, this is a divided country that wants unification. People in the north and people in the south, to varying different percentages and degrees and data points, want unification. Now, to the degree that they want unification, that's a completely different conversation. But they want unification. And so that's always been kind of my prescription solution, is just have the two Koreas just kind of go to the negotiation table. That's it. That's a pretty basic fucking thing. The only reason why I said South China Sea is because the war games have extended into the South China Sea with the Japanese and the United States military, and I think it would be helpful if no war games happen within the Sea of Japan or the South China Sea or even in the Sea of the Philippines. That was the only reason why I was bringing up those seas, is because war games have happened in all of those places, and I think those war games are bad. That is the only thing I wanted to say. But you decided that because I mentioned the word China, it was okay.
No, don't fucking do that nonsense.
That's what you did,
I was
though.
extending you mentioned the South China Sea, so I was suggesting that if you want a military step back in that region, China has to stop fucking around in the South China Sea too.
But that has nothing to do with the conversation about Korea, though.
I didn't say it did.
But that's what you were implying when you said
No,
it, though.
I broadened out the conversation. Okay,
No,
Valley.
I don't care about
Okay,
the broad
Valley
conversation,
girl.
because that doesn't matter.
Okay. Fuck me.
Again, that was a weird point. Like that's not nothing to do with what we were talking about. All right, look. I'll give you like a couple minutes. Do you want your chat to ask any fun questions? We'll do like a fucking
I'm done with this
no
conversation
cringe
now.
questions. Oh, okay. All right. Cool. All right. Well, have fun with your yellow peril. Have fun with your red scare stuff.
I will.
Have fun calling me a genocide denier for the rest of this chat. I really don't care how this looks. Like, don't give a shit.
Can you
because it's
say
a
genocide bad uwu for us?
No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to give you that meme because you don't deserve it. It's not funny.
It is quite funny. It is quite
No, the
funny.
meme is actually really funny, but I don't want to give it to you because you've been kind of a dick this call. So it's fine.
Hurtful, man.
I mean,
I may never
do you
recover
want me to
from
do
it.
it for the chat though? Because I can do it for the chat.
Go on then.
Do you want me to say genocide woo? Does everyone want me to say genocide bad woo?
Well, you just did.
Do you want me to say it again though? Everyone wants to. Does everyone want me to just say, genocide bad woo? Because it's funny. We all think it's funny.
It is.
I mean, I think you guys think it's way more funny than I do.
It is funny. Okay.
Why do you think it's funny? Come on, tell me.
Because it's enormously disrespectful to people being genocided. Anyway.
Oh man, if only that was happening though. Woo.
There you go. You got your meme. Anyway, thank you for coming on. And I say thank you Advisedly, I think.
Oh, I can't wait. This is gonna be incredibly funny, and I can't wait for this lovely video to go up on the internet. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thanks for coming. Where can people find you? If, by the way, don't go and harass Mel. Even if you disagree with her, by all means discuss shit, but don't go around being a prick. Okay? If I find any of you have been fucking racist or transphobic, I'm going to terms of service. Anyway, where can they find you?
I'm glad you towed that line super early.
Thank you.
So your line is they can't intersectionally make fun of me, but they can say genocide bad, ooh.
They can do memes, but they can't do actual racism. That's not cool.
Yeah, I do. You know what? Someone in chat said I need to pluck my eyebrows. I do. They're really terrible. That is fair. That is very bad. I know. They're really fucked up. I need to fix them. Thank you for reminding me. I'll probably do that later today.
Mal, where can they find you? For God's sake, stay on point. Come on.
Oh no, points are. Everyone knows my Twitter by now. Do I have to plug it? Yeah, you just follow me on Twitter.
Okay. Thank you.
At ChaosIsMel on Twitter.com. Just say nice things to me. Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, cool, man. Enjoy your day.
This is the best. I had a good time. You're the best in the best.
Thank
Kevin.
you.
Thank you for finally having this drama conversation that you've been so dying for.
Goodbye. Oh, fuck me. Oh. What happened? What was that? What even happened there? That was a thing. That was a thing. But what I said at the end there is true. If I find you going like abuse Mel, I will be very, very angry with you. Don't fucking do that. If you want to go and have a conversation with her, by all means. That's, you're all adults, I think. Maybe some of you are children, I don't know. But anyway, be respectful at the very least. Because we're not that community, okay? Oh. Yeah, that was a thing. I genuinely, I wish I could give you a wrap up to what that was and be like, here's what I thought we got out of the conversation. But I don't know we got anything out of the conversation. And I feel like I'll probably need to process this fucking shit show before I can really give you any breakdown on it. Anyway, the noises happen. That what I will say that did annoy me, I have the alert box muted, but the noises still fucking happened when people like subscribed or whatever. So that was annoying, but I'll read those out anyway. Where are we? Where did we start from? I can't even remember. It's been a while. There we go. Right. So Sophia, Christina, both. By the way, Sophia, if you're still in the chat, go spam your links and everyone go and follow Sophia. She's awesome. She gave $1 and said solidarity with ChaosIsMel from a fellow trans sister. Okay. I presume that this would have been before the conversation started. Anyway, but thank you. Thank you to 909 Productions for following. These are all on Twitch, by the way, YouTube people. So, like, if you want to go and follow me there, you can do so as well. 909 Productions, thank you for following. Sophia comes back again with another $1. Thank you very much. They say, how does ChaosIsMel respond to those communists that think being trans and LGBTQ is bourgeois decadence? Well, I did ask that question, and hopefully the answer sufficed. Thank you to Cobby Bobby? Or Kobe Bobby? I don't know. For following, and then they also subscribed with a tier 1 subscription. Boom shakalaka. Thank you very much. Thank you to nerds, indeed. Sophia, Christina, both are again with $1. Says there was never an official ceasefire between North Korea and South Korea, so technically they're still at war. Correct. And thank you again for another $1 from Sophia with, are buffer states more fun than dodgem states? That is a unique question, and I thank you for it. Thank you to Mitch Find for following. Thank you to Samantha it's Samantha Banana, I believe, but Samantha Banana in British. 85 for following. Who is that? Is that the person that's done the debates and stuff on Twitch? I seem to remember something Banana doing debates. If it is, I thought you were quite cool in the thing I saw you in. Thank you to Sophia again. Lots of money from Sophia. Another $1 with, Japan has invaded and occupied Korea or parts of Korea numerous times over the centuries. Fucking true. And thank you for the donation. Thank you to Suck Dem Shill for following. That's I think that's me, isn't it? I'm a radical centrist liberal something. Thank you to Unchained Mel, who I believe is a different person to the Mel we were talking to. They just have the same name. Tell her about how Come on, Kev, shut up. Need to turn that one down. Unchained Mel said, tell her about how Australia has handled its indigenous population. They still don't exist in pockets of communities, but the policies in place to handle them overall is designed to end their culture, whatever slivers still exist of it. Well, I didn't mention Australia specifically, although I could have mentioned the Stolen Generations, which was not an act of murder, but was still very much an act of genocide. But I did mention the schools, I fucking mentioned it in the chat and I can't remember it now. My brain's melted. The residential schools in Canada, which is basically the same dynamic in as much as it's a non-murder. There is still a genocide. So I think we covered the basic point. I hope that was sufficient, Mel. Unchained Mel, the donator. And thank you for the donation. Thank you to Sophia again with another $1. You don't have to keep giving me $1. Like, Sophia has my Facebook. She could just, contact me. But I appreciate the donations nonetheless. Considering the UN did fuck all to stop genocide in Rwanda, ask Mel, was there genocide in Rwanda? Well, she certainly seemed to claim that there was a genocide in Rwanda. So, again, hopefully we covered that for you. Oh, burpee. Apologies. Thank you to King Coroner for following. RV78 with 200 bits. Again, bits are a thing you can do. Bits are a thing. You can also subscribe to me as well. Shall I do shilling? I'll do shilling, yeah. You can subscribe to me on Twitch with $5 of your own money. Or if you've got an Amazon Prime, you can link it to your Twitch account. And you get a free subscription every month, which you can use on good channels, but also shit channels like mine. And give me $5 of Jeff Bezos' money. Socialisms, praxisisms. There's bits, there's the Streamlabs for donations, as these very, very generous people have done. And, of course, there's Patreon, if you want to give a regular monthly donation for Rory Cats. And the Tiny Monkey Army, obviously. Of whom Rory Cats is the general, naturally. Where were we? So yeah, RV78 with 200 bits says, I literally have no respect for Chinese propagandists. These people terrify me. Yeah, I'm not a massive fan myself. Thank you for the bits. Globo homo, globo homo. See, I need to make those shorter because I keep being distracted and singing along with them, which ruins the flow of the show, Kev. Thank you to PE01B6 with 100 bits. They say, international investigation worked really well in Argentina during the dictatorship. They just mopped up the blood before the inspectors came round and continued the murder after they had gone. Yeah, I did try and explain that the UN are dog shit, which is, just true. They are dog shit. They're not going to do anything. Thank you to Unchained M with $5, who says, take my money, you beautiful bastard. I presume you're talking to Rory Cats there. Actually, where is he, by the way? Is he around? Psst, psst, psst. Rory Cats. Psst, psst, psst. No, he's probably outside. Yeah. It's actually an odd day. It's been quite bright sunshine, but very, very cold and snowing. So it's like it cannot make its fucking mind up what the hell's going on. And at the same time as well, it's been really, you saw earlier it was really sunny, but you may have seen what looked like rain through the light, but it was actually snow. So it was sunshine and snow, which made my head hurt on top of this fucking conversation. Yeah, thank you to Leader77 for following. Sophia again with another $1. Sophia, you are too generous. I may need to hide several bodies for you. Does Mel consider the DPRK a democracy? Well, I didn't ask her about the DPRK, but I did ask about China and America. And she seemed to think that asking about other countries was irrelevant, even though she made lots of points about how there were genocides in other countries, which would seem to be them doing a conversation about other countries. Okay. Thank you to Silas Vidya and the Happy Punk for both following. Welcome aboard. Thank you to Sister Rose with the 100 bits. They say, I called Mal out for the genocide denial stuff before, but it was cool and got me disappeared from left Twitch since she complained to the manager, RGR. Riley Grace Rochon. Really? Okay. About it, and it went on stream to speculate about my mental illness. Really? That's fucked up. That shouldn't happen. It's been pretty traumatic seeing her pop off everywhere, but at least she's experiencing some pushback now. Well, yeah, hopefully I'll have to probably watch it back, because I don't know if I was successful in pushing back or whether I just got angry and shouted. I don't know. Maybe a little bit of feedback, people, would be good, because I wasn't able to really. I was trying to A, stay vaguely sane, and B, trying to make sure the stream was still going, so I wasn't sure. I wasn't able to really watch the chat a great deal. But hopefully I did okay. I don't know. It's up to the viewer, ultimately. Thank you to Newman Nuggs with 200 bits, but no message, but 200 bits. Thank you very much. And thank you to Lace Argar with £1, which is $1.38. We learnt that, didn't we? Yeah. They say, that was astonishing shit. You should never have done that. ChaosIsMel is a troll who thrives off your annoyance. She works like the old trolls of 4chan who rocked disabled people for yucks and felt superior. She played you because you're empathetic. Well, okay, that's you're entitled to that viewpoint. Hopefully some pushback was able to be gotten. I hope no one was too disappointed with my performance, if nothing else. But that's Lace, you're entitled to that opinion. Yes. Oh. Anyway, how are we in the chat? I'm not going to stay around for that much longer because I've got a show planned for tonight on my regular Twitch Tuesdays. Yeah, so if like this was just like an extra or whatever. If you want to see what's more regular in terms of my content, I'll be watching a few things tonight only on Twitch. So if you want to subscribe and get the full Kevin Logan experience, you go over to twitch.tv/KFLogan1875. You can follow me there, and you can do all the other things and give me money if you also think it's worthwhile. But yeah, as that person just did. Yeah, and I'll be back. I don't even really know what time I'm going to be back. Usually I'd have like a time for it. But I'll be back at some point. I need to process some shit. Kev, you're on Twitch the last 2 days. Yeah, because YouTube have been taking down videos for copyright. Now, obviously, this one won't get taken down because there's no fucking copyright. We didn't play anything. Well, other than technically, I suppose, the sound of Homer Simpson saying nerd. That's copyright, but I don't care. Anyway, thank you to Sister Rose for following, as indeed she just did. Assuming that the sister indicates she, I don't know. Yeah, this was fucking mad. I need to go and decompress for a few hours, and I'll be back at some point. Check out my social medias. My Twitter's linked below. You are a she. Good. So, yeah. She just followed. See? Go to the UK streamer CryptoPods with Chud. That's true. Yeah, I should do that. Good. Anyway, so yeah, I'll be back. Check out my social medias, and I'll be at some point either tonight or it might even be technically tomorrow morning UK time. I'll be back, and we'll be looking at some stuff. There's a couple of silly debates that might be worth taking a look at. But for now, I am going to fucking compress. I'll kick you over to someone who's going on Twitch. Let me just have a cheeky little look at this shizzle. Where we are. Cheeky little look at this shizzle. Fuck you, Logan. We've got Central Committee. Well, actually, as we talked about him, and as he raided into me yesterday, I'll repay the favour, and you can go over and check out what the fuck Lud Chugic is what I nearly said there, or even Chud Logic, on the Twitch machines, and where are we? Chud Logic, there we go. And I'll be back at some point later on. Well, he was on. I literally just saw his thing. So he definitely is on, and I'm about to raid into him. So anyway, thank you for listening and watching to whatever the fuck this was. By all means, give me feedback, positive, negative, but make it constructive, and I'll be back later on. Thank you so much for all your support. You are glorious people. No, pass around.